So
this is Maddie. She's really cool.
Yes, I know Maddie. Good to see you.
Shaking my
Oh my God. I know. I could give you a hug, but you're too far away. Here, hug.
We're live, guys. We're on the live stream right now.
Hello.
I wonder if we have like a fan base on YouTube
Rob.
from like what they're weird. Oh, Florida.
I'm going to call the 12th meeting of the 13th Undergraduate Senate to order. I will begin by calling roll. Senator Pintar.
Here.
Senator Hawk.
Here.
Senator Dantzler. Senator Burgess. Senator Meekum.
Here.
Senator Chen. Senator Adams.
Here.
Senator Polinsky. Senator Najafi.
Here.
Senator Koshman. Senator Fryer. Senator Kenna.
Here.
Senator Martine. Senator Morrow.
Here.
Senator Zitzman.
Here.
Senator O'Connor.
Here.
Senator Leaney.
Here, Miss Roxy.
Senator Aljaber. Senator Legitimacy.
Here.
Senator Agdepa.
Here.
Senator Robbins.
Here.
Okay, quorum is met. We move to the adoption of the agenda. Is there any discussion on the current agenda? Seeing none, will be adopted without objection. Moving to the adoption of the minutes. First to the 11th meeting of the 13th Undergraduate Senate. Pull this up. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, they'll be adopted without objection. Moving to the second special meeting of the 13th Undergraduate Senate. Any discussion? They will be adopted without objection. All right, moving to public comment. First to the Strategic Planning Committee.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well and are having a good day so far. For those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Valentina Fernandez, and I am the student trustee on the Board of Trustees, but I'm also the undergraduate student and president for Rose Strategic Planning Committee, developing a 5-year plan of our vision, of our strategy for AU as an institution moving forward. And this is Mina.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm president of the Graduate Leadership Council and represent the graduate students here at AU.
Yeah, Nina and I are working closely in the committee, but also working together to lead AU's enrollment strategy as part of the work that we're doing. So if we can just go to the next slide really quickly. Great, so let's put a pin on this actually. But the reason we're here is to just give you an update on the work that the committee has been doing, the type of conversations we've been having, and where we can move forward and where students fit into all of these conversations. Kind of to just give like a not ground rules, but just to give an overview. We really want to make sure that we're being respectful of your time. So just make sure that you keep all conversations related to the strategic plan process and any other concerns that you can have. Just feel free to email us directly. If you have very specific questions as well, feel free to email strategy@american.edu.
And if I can just add, this is going to be an ongoing process. So throughout now and next fall, we'll be gathering input. This is certainly not going to be the last time that we all speak. So given the time constraints we have today, we just want to make sure that the conversation moves forward.
Yeah, and we're happy to discuss any key points further. Later on in the presentation, there's going to be a slide about mission, vision, and values. I just want to point out that although these things are important, I think maybe focusing on some of the middle content that we're going to be focusing on might be a better use of our time. So if you want to be engaged with the mission, vision, values, again, it's one of those things to keep towards the very end if we have time, or send an email about. So to just give you an update, So over the last 9 months or so, since President Burwell stepped into the role, as you know, she has had her listening tours. She's met with students, faculty, staff, alumni, trustees, literally anyone that will talk to her. And based on all of the input that she's gathered, she's kind of set a few goals for AEO. Then she developed the strategic planning committee. The strategic planning committee consists of students, which are both of us, faculty, alumni, trustees, staff, literally everyone. And it's about 15 to 20 of us. And the way she chose the committee was just on the experiences that she's had working with us and the working relationship that we've had together. So based on that, the strategic planning committee has worked with an outside consulting firm that has helped us identify our SWOT analysis. So our SWOT analysis are our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. So we're using all of that information to see where we are lacking, where the gaps are, and how the strategy process can really help it in the future. So this quick slide right here. So this is kind of an overview of like the higher education landscape as it stands right now. So you can see the problems that, the conversations that we're going to be having in this strategic process were not the same conversations that we would have been having 2 or 3 years ago. Why we're seeing an increase in non-traditional students that are starting to attend colleges. The rising incomes for graduates are changing. The competition is growing for higher education institutions. International student growth is declining now. These are things that we need to keep in mind to make sure that we're addressing our student populations adequately. I think someone put it really well at our last committee meeting. It was like, the question has always been, are students college ready? And I think the conversation now is, are colleges student ready? So that's our goal in tackling in all of the conversations move forward. So I mentioned the SWOT analysis really quickly. A lot of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we discussed have been things that probably all of us can agree on. In fact, we actually had a lot of focus group sessions with a lot of students, some who may be in this room, I think, actually, talking about whether we agree with our SWOT analysis, what's missing, how can we reframe things, reword things. And what we came down to were a couple of things. So first, for strengths, let's see if we can find it here. So the advantages of being in DC, its campus, our historical commitment to service, our researchers, our creative leaders, and our alumni. Then some weaknesses included internal barriers to innovation, lagging infrastructure, a lack of culture of alumni engagement and loyalty, and the need to continue working on diversity, equity, and inclusion matters. I just want to touch on that briefly. So you'll notice that in a lot of the content that we're going to be covering today, we're not going to be specifically talking about inclusive excellence or equity, and I'll tell you why. So the inclusive excellence plan needs a lot of individualized attention. We need to be intentional about what's being included, who we're talking to, who's being in those conversations. We don't want it to get lost in the strategic planning process. And it's also following very different timelines. So the inclusive excellence plan already has like measurements, levels of accountability. It's just like way ahead than we are in the strategic planning process. So the way President Burwell has tried to tie this in is once the strategic planning process is as caught up to the same level that the inclusive excellence plan is, the inclusive excellence plan will be brought up and will be part of the overall strategy, but it's why we're not focusing on it right now. With that being said, all members of the committee are keeping all of those goals and values in mind and all of the work that we're doing. So whether we're talking about engagement, whether we're talking about alumni given, whether we're talking about faculty teaching and researching, how can we make it as inclusive as possible and make sure that our goals are not exclusive to a larger equity conversation. So in terms of opportunities, the analysis identified a couple things. So one, expanding engagements with DC as both a policy center and community, enhancing AU's reputation for being strong in both research and teaching and learning. That's a really big one. growing revenue through expanding lifelong learner and online programs, as well as through philanthropy via campaign, developing partnerships with other higher education institutions, the private sector, government institutions, elevating branding and communication to tell the better AU story. In terms of challenges, there's a couple we're dealing with. So first, I think as a lot of people in this room are aware, higher education as a whole has a large business model when we talk about cost and everything. So what are our threats? The business model that we're using, the decline in international students to enroll in higher education institutions as a whole, declining public perceptions of higher education, and increased competition from both traditional and non-traditional entities. So drawing on all of this input and the feedback we received from all of the focus sessions and everything that we've discussed, the SWOT analysis is being used as a framework. So the framework is designed to answer the so what questions. So what is our goal we should be getting out of this? So if we can just move on to the next slide. So the main three things, what are our what's? Economics, enrollments, and excellence are the main three things that we are trying to tackle in this committee. We need to increase and diversify our revenues. As many of you know, we're a largely tuition-dependent institution. How can we start shifting our mindsets towards diversifying where we get our money from? So that's going to include alumni. And also talking about the conversation about on the expense side, especially as we see that a lot of non-traditional students are starting to come into colleges. You're dealing with different populations that may not normally have been included in these conversations. Enrollment, which is a lot of the work that both Mina and me are doing in the committee. It's just how can we make sure that AU is ready to prepare those non-traditional students that are coming? How can we increase and support our international students, work on retention for students, and also increase face-to-face enrollment, both on the undergraduate side and the enrollment side, but also online, because it is a new up-and-coming trend that we're seeing in higher education. And then on excellence, what are areas of excellence? How can we make sure we're highlighting them? How are we executing this? And how do we tell our story to better, it all ties back to the economics. If we're able to tell our AU story, our economics, we're able to increase and diversify revenues. We're able to find different ways to be innovative, to bridge collaboration, everything like that. Next slide. Let's talk about this one. Okay, so strategic imperatives to house. So how are we gonna do the what's that we discussed? The first thing is through partnerships, research and teaching, learning future citizens. So just for some context, the way we're setting this up right now, subgroups. So at the end of the day, for example, the vice president of enrollment isn't in the strategic planning committee and they need to be a part of conversations. So we have subgroups of experts that are known in that field. So for partnerships, what does the future of the university look like? Who are we partnering? A really big thing is going to be partnering with the DC community. I really think, as a student, I can say this for myself as well. We do a really good job of taking advantage of internships and being in the nation's capital. But there are a lot of problems in the nation's capital as well that we often overlook. So how can we make sure that we're having a working relationship consistently? Research and teaching and learning. So we want our faculty to be producing award-winning, top-notch research, but at the same time, that's not the only thing that makes a strong faculty member. So a strong faculty member is someone that is able to produce really good research, but also be a really good teacher, mentor our students, be there from them, identify which students have high levels of potential, which students need an extra boost. So we're going to be looking at best strategies for that. And then future citizens has two elements, meeting students where they are, but also preparing them to go once they leave AU. So that's really focused on the post-graduation aspect. Where are they going? Are they, leaving AU with a sense of loyalty, loving this place, feeling like AU really supported them, and so on. And this is all supported by the RISE program that the provost has started and everything like that. But we still there's always more work to do. So this is the draft vision statement. As I mentioned before, this is important, and we've had a lot of focus groups with a lot of student, faculty, staff, alumni input, and even on the board of trustees. But we don't want to get caught up in this conversation because we're putting a pin on it. We're changing it based on the feedback that we received, like as far as wording, things like that. But we will come back to it later on in the work the committee does, and we'll make sure to also include student voices in that. But if you just want to take a quick time, I'll just read it out loud really quickly. So American University is a leading student-centered research university where passionate learners, bold leaders, engaged scholars, innovators, and active citizens unleash the power of collaborative discovery. Faculty, staff, students, and alumni partner with key organizations in Washington, D.C. and around the globe to better the human condition, learn from experience, including a world of internships, create meaningful change, and address society's current and emerging challenges. So just to tell you a little bit about what the conversation looked like, we didn't just want to make the current challenges emerging. What are our problems in the future? Because our AU alumni need to be the ones tackling them. We're not just engaging with DC internships. We're being collaborative, we're being innovative. We're really learning from our experience, and although we have great research, we also have great adjuncts that bring in the experiential learning in our classrooms. Next slide. So this was our draft mission and value statements. Again, don't want to get caught up in this conversation, but just really quickly. Mission: to advance knowledge, foster intellectual curiosity, build community, and empower lives of leadership, service, and purpose. Our core values: integrity, excellence, human dignity, community, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusive excellence, free inquiry and seeking truth, and making a difference, whether that be through research, service, or otherwise. Now, this list of core values needs to be condensed, and that's something we're going to be continuing through a lot of the engagement that we have and will continue on moving forward. And I think that is our last slide. So,
yeah, so this was kind of more of a high-level overview of what we've done thus far with the strategic planning process. And as Valentina and I've mentioned earlier on, we can discuss more specifically the mission, vision, values, and the diversity and inclusive piece separately, and also, address any comments or concerns for that via email or to strategy@american.edu. Our primary purpose here today, as mentioned, is to really kind of answer any questions you might have about the broader strategy process. This is only one of the few sessions that we'll be holding between now and fall. Like I said, this is an ongoing conversation, and right now, members of the planning process have been separated into various committees. Valentina mentioned that we both are sitting on the enrollment committee to discuss strategy specifically pertaining to enrollment. However, there are members of various constituencies, including students, also serving on all of the other subcommittees for the planning process. And as I mentioned, between now and fall, when we hope to conclude the process and announce the plan under President Burwell's leadership, there will be continued engagements with all various constituencies at AU. So starting with students, faculty, staff, alumni, our partners and friends of the university. This is not going to be the first time we discuss, and President Burwell will also be engaging in discussions further into spring and early fall, because it's also important for her to hear from students and to also be part of these discussions. And along the way, Valentina and I will be resources for everyone should you have any questions.
with that being said, are there any questions about the process, where we're moving forward, or any things you think we're missing in this, any gaps within the parameters that we're working with, of course?
Senator Zitzman.
Do you know when the plan might come out, the report being finalized?
The timeline right now is September, October of this coming fall semester. So that's what we're working on, and I'm sure throughout the process, the university will be keeping everyone up to date on where we're at.
Any other questions?
Senator Leahy's proxy.
So during your presentation, you mentioned that there are currently accountability mechanisms in place for this plan. Can you name me some mechanisms that would basically hold the PCI staff accountable for implementing this
So-
program?
I think you misheard me. Sorry if I misspoke. But I talked about their accountability measures for the Inclusive Excellence Plan, which are different than what's going to happen for this plan. So we're bringing that in at the very end. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, and if I may, are there any considerations of implementing any accountability mechanisms to ensure that this plan actually does go forward?
Yeah.
I would say so, and I think those conversations will actually take place at the subcommittee level because this plan is so broad. We've had to really break it down to individual subcommittees to focus on specific topics, and those subcommittees will be discussing how we might all hold each other accountable for carrying out the specific strategy set pertaining to each subcommittee topic. So, and I think at the end, towards the end of this process, and as we build this plan, we'll see more concrete information regarding specific accountability pieces and how we might ensure that this plan carries through.
And I will say though that we've had a lot of conversations about what measuring effectiveness and assessment will look like. Because if we looked at the previous plan that was in place under President Curvin's leadership, that was one of their strengths, that they did have formal ways of assessing whether the plan was working or not.
Other questions? Senator O'Connor?
I think that was a really great question previously asked. So, with regards to like actually implementing this plan, does this end up becoming the responsibility of like individual departments? Like, let's say like each department sort of gets like a list of the stuff that they have to do to carry out the mission. Can you like elaborate on that?
So I think it depends. So it's kind of like the goals are set here and everyone is responsible for meeting them. From the past, it honestly hasn't been a large problem on like meeting those goals. I think it's a matter of making them more towards like what students and what our community is demanding. And I think we're in that process right now.
And let me just add, this is a strategic planning process for the entire university. So this is really going to be a collaborative effort with all of the campus department and offices. Although certain topics might pertain to a particular department, like enrollment, for example, might fall under the Office of Enrollment specifically, this is truly a collaborative effort with all constituencies at AU. And I'm certain that in the discussions we've been in, AU is really hoping to, introduce this as a university-wide process and not something specifically to a particular department.
Senator Morrow.
Can I motion to transfer speaking rights to like members of the public?
Public comment?
Anyone can question during public comment, correct?
Yeah. Can I do that?
Hi. So
Can you check?
No, she definitely can.
Yeah, she can.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to like make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've actually been reading some recent articles that were posted by some students in regards to the gender disparity between who receives research opportunities at AU. And I was wondering, because the core values, I know that we don't want to spend too much time focusing on the mission, vision, values of AU, but it's definitely very difficult for women to receive research opportunities at the school. In fact, it's also why a lot of our female professors are not being tenured because they don't have, the privilege of their male counterparts in receiving these research, opportunities. So I was wondering what the university was going to do on that behalf, just because it looks great to say that we can make a difference through research and service, but clearly there's a very, very apparent discrepancy between the sexist gendered opportunities.
Thank you. I think that's a really important point. I'm going to answer that with two temporary answers right now. So first, some of the work the Teaching and Research Committee is doing is reevaluating what makes a professor tenured. And in that, a lot of the conversations that will be ongoing is like, what are we missing with our process right now that maybe isn't the most equitable and really disenfranchises certain people, whether it be for gender or race, really their background in any way. Second, I think there's also a separate conversation happening that's not related to this committee as well. So we don't want to get into the nitty gritties, but there will be a provost search given that current provost Scott Bass will be stepping down at the end of this year. So I think that should be at the center of the questions that we're asking whoever is entering the role. Third, I know Mina and me will be more than happy to relay that specific comment back to the committee as a whole, because I do think it's extremely important.
And let me just add to that, in addition to relaying the concern back to the committee as a whole, I think we can also let everyone know that we have Lacey Wooten, who directs the writing program at AU, and another professor, Pat, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, in SOC, and both have mentioned the item that you just brought up, actually, and both are very interested in that specific topic. So it's assuring, at least for me as a graduate student, to hear that they're leading the specific subcommittee on teaching and excellence.
That's awesome.
Mr. Delaney?
So I understand that, it's an extremely important thing that we're doing here, and it needs to be presented, and especially in a space like this, which is extremely important. But I do want to go back to the point of the presentation where you said that, we're holding accountability to make sure that this actually does get approved university-wide. And a senator brought up a question about having offices involved and things like that. I work as an LGBTQ plus peer educator for the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. And the Center for Diversity and Inclusion was included on the Inclusive Excellence Plan. It was listed right there. When I went back to my office to speak to some of the higher ups in CDI, they did not know that they were on that plan. So why was there a disconnect in having CDI listed on this plan, which is an important thing to do, but why was the Center for Diversity and Inclusion not reached out to? Because when we had students come and ask questions, we had nothing to give them.
Yeah, so I think it's an important question. So I said to the beginning that the committee members were chosen by President Burwell, and the working relationship she has had with all of us and the trust she really put in us to come up with this. So as far as committee makeup, I'm not quite sure what to tell you. I can relay that question to the president's office, and I'd be more than happy to get back to you. Second, as far as reaching out to more intentional communities, we agree, which is why Nina and me, when we were at the committee meeting, were like, we need to make sure that the student sessions are more intentional, and we'll come up with our plan to do that. So this is like a general meeting, but aside from that, we're also having student sessions with specific communities and student leaders. We've included all of the cultural organizations. We have included non-traditional students, transfer students, and everyone like that. So we just want to make sure that we're keeping as many members involved in the process, and the staff are leading their own sessions, and so are faculty. Yes.
I understand and agree with that, and I get that I really get that the students need to be involved in the center of all of this, but at the same time that, in my opinion, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, didn't answer my question as to why CDI was put on the plan and not reached out to.
Let me ask a clarifying question.
Right.
Is this, so I understand, are you speaking specifically to us why CDI was
listed, but
listed
not reached out to?
Was it the diversity and inclusive?
It was the Inclusive Excellence Plan.
Okay. So that's kind of beyond the scope of the strategic planning process. And so at least, I would say we cannot speak to that specifically, and you might want to refer to Dr. Ah, who's leading that process.
Thank you.
But of course, if you have a question regarding diversity and inclusiveness pertaining to the strategic planning process, we can certainly answer those.
And I think, if I may, Trevor, I'm going to pick Yami, because Yami was in PCDI, which is the committee that developed all of the inclusive excellence work.
So I'm a bit confused because Sarah, sorry, I lost my voice. Sarah, who's in the staff of CDI, sits in PCDI. So she was a crucial part of having this conversation. So CDI has an active role in PCDI itself. And I personally have talked to Tiffany Speaks, and she was aware of it too. So I don't know where the disconnect happened. I don't know if it was a misinterpretation of information, but Sarah, who's part of the staff in PCDI, does sit in PCDI and was very much aware of the information.
Thank you.
Other questions? Senator Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you too for being here today and all the work that you've done in the leadership on this. I just have two quick questions. The first question, I'll ask them in succession, just to make it simple. possible. The first question I have is you talked about non-traditional students. I'm just wondering, have you spoken to gap year students? Because I know as a gap year student, the transition was a little bit, I think it was a little bit more difficult than maybe some students who come here straight from high school. And then the second question I'll ask is, I love all the talk about human dignity and sort of the kind of the human condition, bettering that, but it's tricky, right? Because how can you develop a sort of assessment that the university can follow that we're actually practicing that in every aspect of the university's plan, right? Of the university's facets, right? So I'm wondering, like, what are those kind of conversations looking like making sure that we're actually wanting to better the human condition and treating people with dignity?
Yeah, so to your good question, I think to your first question about students of gap years, important. So I think even with transfer students, for example, you have students that are entering AU their sophomore or junior year of college and really, for a variety of different reasons, chose to transfer, but also didn't get the same type of social interactions and opportunities as a student entering the first year of the university would get. So I totally hear you. What we've done is the list that we've used to reach out to students has been a combination of lists that we have used prior for board breakfasts, engagements, things like that, that we developed with Dr. Ah. Dr. Ah and we made sure to include non-traditional students in that, whether it was because she knew them or because we identified a couple of students. So we have those students in the mix that were invited to our specific focus sessions. To your second point, I completely agree. It's like, great, anyone can say inclusivity, but what does that look like? And it's been an ongoing conversation, particularly as it pertains to the building community, I think is one of them. Like at the beginning, it's like build community. And it's like, what, build community? Like anyone can build community and like be a racist community, be a sexist community, whatever it may be. So we're working on that language. And just the point of having those mission, vision, values is that so we make sure that the strategy that's being developed is aligned with that. So we want to make sure that the strategy that comes out is inclusive, is, building community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about the accountability measures beforehand. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
So let me just ask a quick follow-up question. I'll be as concise as possible. Have you spoken to any gap year students? Do you know that?
Gap year students have been reached out to.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
And now we have you too.
Yeah.
That
so
we can pull in for discussion.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'll also say, I think when we speak about non-traditional students, gap year students are increasing on college campuses. But we should also keep in mind that non-traditional includes a variety of different students. So, students who are online, maybe at the graduate level, those that are part-time, those students that are older. I think certainly something that pertains to both undergraduate, graduate, and law student constituencies. And also those who participate in specs programs and then end up moving into a full-time program at AU at any of the various schools.
Thank you so much.
Senator Najafi?
So you talked a little bit about how the DC community really brings in students as well. So I want to hear more about the partnerships you plan on making with different institutions in DC and the community in general outside of just internships.
Yeah, so like I said, we want to make it more than just internships. So one of the subcommittees is external partnerships, and that's being led by our School of Education team, who has already done so many great initiatives and starting to reach that gap. I think that's a lot of the work that the subcommittee is doing. So I can't give you specifics because that's literally what they're working on right now. But if you have any ideas on things or partnerships that we should be creating, feel free to talk to me afterwards, and I'll make sure to relay that.
I'm just curious if it's research centric or event centric, what kind of stuff?
Everything. Literally everything. How can we make sure that AU is known in DC?
Okay.
Senator Pintar?
Thank you. Thank you in your presentation for including in part of the project being increasing AU's endowment, because that is an issue, and that's being a tuition-based institution is what makes AU a lot unaffordable a lot of the time. So I was just wondering if you could re-clarify some projects that are part of the plan that you have to make sure that we can increase our endowment throughout this plan.
Yeah, so one of the key aspects is economics, and that's going to be a consistent theme throughout the entire strategic planning process. That includes finding ways to diversify revenue, looking at our model, what is wrong with it, identifying maybe problems and how much we're spending and where we're allocating money. Literally, the conversation is so broad, and there's a specific subgroup of people dedicated to it. And we have the chief financial officer is a part of the strategic planning committee, and I know that's one of the key things President Burwell is dedicated to as well.
And if I can just add, because another important point for everyone to know is that while the strategic planning process is undergoing, during this time, the Office of Alumni Relations and Development is also undergoing their own campaign, specifically pertaining to increasing AU's endowment. So we are tackling this in various ways, and I will also note, as you all are aware, there are other outside forces that have affected endowments at schools across the United States, and this is not just an issue pertaining to AU, but something that is on everyone's radar. And that's also why AU is consulted with, is it EAB?
Yeah.
I believe our consulting group, because they are the ones who are able to help us in tackling those specific challenges that affect almost every university.
Senator Leahy's proxy.
So as president of Volta Latino, which is one of the major Latinx organizations on campus, I had the opportunity to actually attend one of the PCDI meetings and give my input on this plan. However, in the meeting, I found it really interesting that it was only the leadership who was able to participate, not really anyone from the general body or anyone from, I guess, the members from the Latinx orgs. So in regards are you trying to do to reach out to the actual student body instead of the leadership? And if you have, can you please name an example?
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. Thank you for your question. I think I can't speak in regard to PCDI because I was not a part of that work. I know Yami is and would be happy to talk about it. But to answer your question about this specific process. So we reached out to over 90 undergraduate students, plus over many graduate students as well. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. But the reason we are having this session right now is because we made this a general community meeting where anyone can attend. And just to clarify, so I was working closely with the speaker and Secretary Chris, just to make sure that we got that graphic that was sent out to an email to the entire student body. So, yes, you've got an individual attention if you're a student leader, like an individualized invitation. But the reason that email was sent out to the entire student body was because we wanted to make sure we weren't just reaching and talking to like the people holding those titles. Did you want to answer Yami on his concern about PCDI, which is separate from this process?
Yes. As you know from our last meeting, PCDI is working actively to make sure that staff, faculty, and students get together in their same space in order to dialogue on how can we best all foster not only communication but mentorship. So you were there, and I hope that you can see that the intent behind PCDI is to really reach the voices of all the students on this campus, but we need to start somewhere, right? And it's already hard enough to get 10 students in a room. So we're trying to get you guys in a room to know what can best work to engage the larger body. And we are going to do that starting soon in that meeting in April that we're gonna have between student, faculty, and staff.
Yeah, and they're two separate processes.
Right. So PCDI, just to clarify, because I think it's important, PCDI is not in the strategy committees. We're our own entity, focusing directly on the Inclusive Excellence Plan. So any questions that you have about Inclusive Excellence Plan is very much our lane. Anything that has to do general stuff, which I know it's hard sometimes because you have to extrapolate a lot of these ideas. It's much their strategic plan, which is also broken up into different aisles, so they might not have the answers to all your questions. So I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to be here and informing all of us.
Senator Qatar.
I just have a follow-up question with my previous question, and I was just wondering, this is about the plan as well. Has there been any conversation or any thoughts of including fossil fuel divestment in this plan for increasing our endowment? Because I'm glad that increasing endowment is a big part of the conversation because that is so important. But how do we claim inclusive excellence and even carbon neutrality when we invest in these when we invest in these corporations that hurt a lot of communities that are affected that like need this inclusive excellence.
Yeah. So to answer your question, so first, I just want to clarify that AU doesn't directly invest in fossil fuels. Second, the board has made it very clear that they're not revisiting their position. Unfortunately, the board and President Burwell, not unfortunately, but we need to make sure that we're also, that everything, we talked about accountability and making sure that all of this gets done. We're sticking to that. Third, I think they're all connected. So if we talk about diversifying revenues, we want to look at different ways to do that. And for like, if the board's decision about fossil free and everything is closely tied to financial risks, right? So if we take a financial risk and it doesn't work appropriately, it ends up harming our most low income students. And that's not what we want. So it's not a cause and effect here, but by diversifying our revenues and doing the work and the philanthropy and all of the things that we're working on, our capital campaign, our alumni office, we're moving closer towards not being in such a tricky financial place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if I can add to that as well, I think just to kind of bring it back to the specific strategy process that we're speaking about today, there has been conversation about somehow incorporating sustainability into this process, into the plan, whether it be through the mission, vision, or values, or under any other subcommittee. So I think, just to reiterate, this is the very start of this process. This conversation is going to be ongoing, and I certainly see sustainability being brought up again. And, perhaps with your feedback, something might be able to be incorporated or further discussed along the way.
Yeah, I can appreciate that you guys are you're here as like representing the project. So, and I know that you guys don't have all the answers right now. So like, I appreciate just like having that clarified as well.
Mrs. Conley?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, just want to reiterate, I really appreciate you guys showing up and like just explaining this entire plan. It's really, really nice of you guys. Thank you guys so much. So just, this is my last question, but just in regards to family finances. So actually starting next year, I have to take out loans for the my second semester sophomore year, my entire junior year, and my entire senior year at AU. So in totality, I owe American University something around like $90K in student loans. And that's never going to go away because even when you die, your student loans carry on. So is your committee, is this entire proposal, obviously I'm not really involved, so I don't know too much, but just how are you guys going to help people like me? Where like, I can't even really kickstart my life off at the same like starting point as most other students who come from like 6-figure families. And, like how are you guys going to help kids like me who have that financial stress to live with forever until probably the day I die?
Yeah, I hear you first. Thank you for sharing. As someone who is a low-income student who relies on scholarships and loans and everything, I completely agree. It's difficult. It's something that, like, as you said, it kind of stays with you it really does stay with you for the rest of your life, which is why a key aspect of this plan is the economics, revisiting our model. Second, I think it's also tied to the future citizens aspect that we talked about, which is about making sure that our students are getting to where they need to be once they graduate, in terms of jobs, in terms of like the employment that like will pay them the amount that they need. So I just want to let you know that's an ongoing conversation, and it's really the nitty-gritty aspects of the work that we're doing and where we are in the process is finding the best strategies to do that, weighing pros and cons, talking to community members once we have that, and then actually finalizing it and putting it in.
When do you think it's going to be finalized? Just because I imagine that this is going to be an ongoing conversation, and I'm like, I don't know, even if I do transfer next year, I still have loans to pay from the school, and let's say that we're still figuring things out, and we're still researching, and we're still talking, while students still have to be carrying the burden.
So I just want to clarify, this is a 5-year plan. President Truman had a 10-year plan. Whatever happened before, unfortunately, it's done. We're looking at the future here. Second, Nina talked about it earlier, but we have a timeline for everything. The plan will be finalized in around September to October in the fall. That is the timeline we're working with.
And what you mentioned, I think, something it pertains to another topic that was brought up. That's in my mind right now, but I mean, affordability and accessibility is a huge topic for college students at the undergraduate and graduate level. You know, I have the same concerns that you have, and that's why we felt the need. The university felt the need to bring in consultants, EAB, to help with these kind of issues because. Pertaining to affordability, sometimes it also goes beyond the scope of a university. And these specific issues are ones that affect students across the United States. And so with their help, we'll be, you know, coming up with solutions and with your input, tailoring it to AU's student body.
Sergeant?
Yes. Hello, thank you for being here. I was just wondering, is there a list of all of these subcommittee topics and the members within those subcommittees that's public?
So no, as far as who are the members in the subcommittee, because we fully developed them, I want to say the week right before spring break. And even during spring break, we were working to make sure that we had everyone that we wanted in our subcommittees. So the reason it's a no is because members are still being, you know, declining or accepting, or maybe it's like, oh, like we figured we missed this person, everything like that. But I'm sure I'll relay that back to the president's office because I'm sure it could be made public once everything is finalized.
And then follow up, I've heard a lot about like hand picking and Burwell, you know, picking specific people. Was there an application process for this or was everyone hand picked?
So it was President Burwell selected the people that she wanted in this committee, and we received invitations from the president's office.
So it was handpicked.
Yes, and it was through the work that we've done with her, and there's several constituencies represented in the committee. So like I said, the committee consists of students, staff, faculty, alumni, trustees. We are the two students. President Burwell has worked closely with us before and has seen the work that we're able to produce. And I think put in a lot of trust in making sure that we're also appropriately able to engage with students and bring in student concerns back to the conversations that are happening. However, if you have any specific concerns about this, feel free to speak to us afterwards or email us and we'll make sure to relay that to the president's office.
Okay, and then another question I had was about the strategic excellence plan and how it plays with this. I heard that the strategic excellence plan is being waited on until this is completed. Is that what you said earlier, that it's something?
No, sorry. I apologize if I misspoke. So the Inclusive Excellence Plan has been developed already. It's finalized. They're working on measurements, like making sure things are accountable. This process is not up to speed. Like it's not at the same place that the Inclusive Excellence Plan already is. So it wouldn't make sense to put something that's already done to the same timeline because then it would actually just end up harming the Inclusive Excellence Plan.
So is the Inclusive Excellence Plan going, like it started and it's not going to wait for this one to be finalized?
No, the Inclusive Excellence Plan was released to the community.
Yes.
Right? So what we're doing is we're bringing that back to the strategic plan once this work is caught up to the same place that the Inclusive Excellence Plan is.
But administration has started implementing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can
And Yami can speak to that because as I said, that work is separate and it's a part of PCDI and we have not been involved with that particular piece because we're in a separate committee. So Yami.
I have a good news. So the Inclusive Excellence Plan has been passed to Fanta. Fanta is going to hire an AVP, which is an assistant vice president, to concentrate on inclusive excellence and implement inclusive excellence. Not only that, but we're tying in PCDI. And not only that, but I'm working to establish a task force, a student task force, to be part of all those implementations that we're going to talk about. Now, I like your idea, and I would love to talk to you about, because what I want to work in is that we need new faces in these conversations. So maybe we will open a task force that is application-based. So let's talk.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had another question. In regards to what she kind of brought up earlier, sorry. Yasmin. I heard about you, girl. But in regards to what she brought up about the gender thing that came up, there's also a lot of been talk about diversity of faculty and like hiring more POC professors, especially that there aren't many Black tenure professors, and I don't believe there's any Black tenure professors in SPA. So, you know, like she said, the research and development thing is nice or whatever, but how are you diversifying the research that AU is providing? Because I think as a university that values or claims to value, you know, diversity and progress and protest and all of this stuff, there is not representative in our academia or the research that we're producing.
That's another inclusive excellence.
Do you wanna, okay, well, I'll give it to Yami in a bit because she can talk about, because that's a key component of the Inclusive Excellence Plan. And I agree with you. All of my professors, except maybe one or two, have been white. Like, I hear you, I'm an SPA, I deal with it every single day. And I know the concerns are different for every community, but yes, I agree. And to be blunt, like, we've had these conversations so candidly, and people have not been holding back about it, rightfully so. So I think it goes back to the selection of our new provost, that the provost is like tasked and like they are the ones ultimately accountable for meeting those. It's tenured, because a lot of times it's simply we're dealing with systems that are designed to advantage people that have historically been in these roles forever, right? So like we're working with a system that disenfranchises minority, Black faculty, Black students, like anyone from a underrepresented community, which is why a key part of it is reevaluating what our tenure process looks like, to your specific point. Now, Yami, if you want to talk specifically about the goals that are set in terms of diversifying our faculty and our research and inclusive excellence.
So I'm in no place right now and I don't know how much I can diverge. So I apologize if this is insufficient, but I'm more than glad to get this information. So we are working specifically with Professor Kendi in his new research center. With that being said, like I said, I can't talk too much about it, but
There's no funding.
Yes, which is why President Burwell is literally this entire week or so, it's heavily fundraising to make sure that we have money for the center. So we are working with a restriction in funds, but that doesn't mean that we don't value it and that we're not looking into it. But we
can talk about that later. That's real. You got to break that down.
Okay.
But just final question. I heard you guys talk about like the community meetings that you did and how you did a universal email and like 90-ish undergrad students came out.
So the 90-ish students and stuff, those are sessions that we will be leading, giving the same presentation.
Okay, so what is it, 90 students total or like?
No, I don't remember the top of my head what the number is. I'd be more than happy to share it with you, but what I can say is that a lot of students, and the student lists were created by ourselves, by people we know, by people that we have seen really caring about these issues on campus, but also by Dr. Ah.
Right. I just think that overall it's important to make sure that you really get to community members and not just leaders of communities.
Which is why we're doing this. And which is why we hadn't.
But these are leaders of communities and just realistically, I think that you have to analyze tactics and how you're approaching communities because like the general body is not going to come to a Senate meeting. They're not going to per se look at an email sent out. So I feel like, there are more efficient ways of creating community gatherings.
So I have a question for you. Sure. I agree, and I didn't just want senators in this room, which is why I asked for a school-wide email to be sent out. If students don't read their emails, if you say that emails are not effective ways, what is an effective way to get someone who isn't a student leader to show up?
Combine with organizations, go to their general body meetings, go to events.
And and if I can add to that, because this is our first meeting, we thought it'd be important to be here and to get this process going. Our intent, especially as students at the undergraduate and graduate level, is to go to students and to go to their meetings. And because we know that when we have general meetings like this, we're not going to be able to reach everyone. And our intent is to reach everyone. So I think hearing from you as well that we should be going to those meetings is just affirmation.
I think people and organizations also want to be included in the creation of the process, though, and that's a lot of the times how you don't get inclusive strategies and plans. It's because communities are reached out to after the fact to give their approval rather than involved in the actual process. So I understand that this is the beginning and that you guys are still working on developing, but just going out after the fact and saying like, hey, are y'all cool with this? Isn't necessarily inclusion.
Right, and we haven't even had our first subcommittee meeting yet. Everything was just formed, so we're doing our best to try and get ahead of the ball.
Okay.
And start to meet with students. And just to provide perspective for graduate students, a lot of graduate students are online. And if we're having a general meeting like this, I mean, clearly it's going to be hard to reach them. So our intent definitely with communities like that is to go to them, to find other means for reaching out to students who may not necessarily be on campus or may not be able to attend a general meeting like this. So it's certainly within what we're thinking, and hearing it from you again, as I mentioned, is important.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Louise Proxy.
So I would actually recommend using social media as well. We as a millennial age really don't read emails. We're more into social media. So I guess just to further comment on that, to go off on a different topic, recent statistics show that Latinos in the U.S. have high dropout rates in college compared to non-Latinos, especially at AU. I guess my question is, how would this plan specifically address this problem at AU?
Yeah, I hear you. I completely agree, which is why one of the things we're tasked with, part of leading the enrollment strategy, is looking at retention problems, looking at demographics, and identifying what are ways that AU can address those concerns.
And if I can add, is there any specific programs or initiative that you're doing specifically for the Latinx students on campus?
So just to clarify again, our subcommittees have not even met yet. It is an important and a forefront of all of the conversations we have, but I can't tell you something when our committee has not even met. Now, Yami, it seems like you have something to say.
Oh my God, yes. I have an exciting news for everybody. We just signed a partnership with Excelencia.
Yeah.
Excelencia is a nonprofit organization that focuses on strategizing on how to best make sure that Latinx students are successful in higher education. With that being said, we signed it about a week ago. I'm meeting with Fanta to make sure that we can get you guys more information on how that would entail and what we can do and how can we get involved. But I'm super excited. And I'm more than happy. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm more than happy to speak on that on the side. So,
and if you have specific suggestions for improving enrollment and retention of Latinx students, then we're happy to hear them too and implement them and/or
bring them to the table.
Yeah, I mean we and that's why we're here today. So if you have specific suggestions or ideas, please let us know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a specific suggestion. When I was in Senate, I was working on an initiative to bring an AVID program to AU. And what this basically is, it's very similar to the STEP program we currently have. And that serves, individuals who just need a little bit more help adjusting, whether it's because they need help in regards to their academics, financially, they just don't really see themselves ever really attending school. They're first generation students. And when I was an AVID tutor in high school, a lot of these students were, undocumented Latinx members. And they're also just like first gen, the first person in their family attending college. So I don't know necessarily if this is the most complicated question in the world, but I do think just extending that STEP program to be 4 years would, go a long way to help.
Yeah.
Also, just again, to the family finances, because I really do think it is so important. And I just hope you relay this information to your first meeting. The reason why we don't have enough diverse members on campus is because diverse members, like myself, have to probably think about dropping out.
Yep.
That's why we have it. Yeah. No, I mean, this is the reality. We don't have to go out of our way to talk to, although it is great, I really, really do think we should be talking to nonprofits. I think we should be doing a lot of outreach because we should have a very diverse viewpoint. But the reality is if we're talking to diverse students, if we're talking to minority students, low income, individuals who are living in DC off of minimum wage, working long hours for low wages. Like last night, I was at my job until 12 a.m. mopping the floor for $12 an hour. It's kids like this that have to think, in the back of their heads, should I be, at AU? Is this really, do I belong here? It's also why we have probably the lowest number of minority students in my year, the freshman year. It's like around 19%. Yeah. And then we feel like, oh shit, is this school even for us? Yeah. So these are just very common sense realities that we need to be talking about. Not necessarily, oh yeah, no, I have a connection to the CEO of X, Y, and Z nonprofit. I got you. No, it's just talk to, I don't know, Brenda outside by the water fountain. She probably has a story that is valuable to the conversation,
No, I completely agree. And to your point, I keep that, and we keep that in mind as well. I think you also have to understand, we're all students as well. And
for sure.
For me specifically, I can only speak on behalf of myself. I am a first generation student. I am low income. I have been fortunate to be in this space, but never would have ever imagined being here, nor for my family, nor what that means for my family. So on a personal note, I keep that in the back of my mind through by the work free approach. Specifically through the AVID program, I will relay that to our external partnerships committee, and they can look into that.
Perfect.
Third, to your point about STEP, I'm not in STEP, so I can't speak to that program, but I know that it's been a conversation before. So I will just
these are just ideas.
Yeah, I would just point to the people in the room who I feel have comments to make about that right now.
I'm a STEP student. I'm very proud to be a STEP student. So is Joshua. I don't know who have said this idea of the 4-year plan, and please retract me if you think I'm wrong. STEP students understand that the STEP program is meant for transition, and it's not meant to be 4 years long. So while I appreciate, I think, the thought behind it and the intent behind making STEP a 4-year program, we need to understand that STEP is for transition purposes.
I've already talked to people and they're more on board with extending it. There's students who are in the STEP program, including people who are leading the program, that realize that transition is not a 2-month thing. Transition is probably a 4-year thing.
If you reform the STEP program, maybe people would be more willing to have it extended. I think that STEP, a lot of the times from what I've heard, is it has a connotation with it. I think that if you maybe reform the program to not feel as as it has a negative connotation with it, but if it didn't maybe have that connotation with it, I think maybe students might be willing. It's a conversation.
It is sort of a problem. Do you want to?
Yeah, I would say the conversation is something that we consistently have within STEP diversity inclusion, and as a STEP alumni of 17, and as I'll be coming again this summer working with the STEP program, we talk about the connotation a lot. It is, like Yami mentioned, it is a transition program, as the title is Summer Transition and Enrichment Program. So actually in the title of STEP, there's that transition. And so students realize that as a transition from high school to college, there are resources that continue out the 4 years. So one benefit that STEP students have is that tutoring aspect. That doesn't just allow them to get free tutoring in their freshman year, but tutoring their sophomore year, their junior year, their senior year. So there are resources in place. Counsels that they receive in the Center for Race Inclusion that stay with them for the 4-year program throughout the 4 years of being here or even beyond.
Right.
And so there are things in place that you will receive throughout the whole process of being here at AU. But I definitely think there's conversation that can happen about the connotations. There can be conversations about how long it extends. But I definitely think we all realize that it is ideally focused on making sure that you have a successful first year at AU. And the transition from high school is different than college.
And I also think.
Any further questions? I'm going to bring it back in. Questions for the strategic planning committee?
I have a question for everyone, if that's okay. How many of you have seen the strategic planning website or been to it? Great, that's awesome. I encourage everyone to go and view it if you haven't already. Sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head, but you can probably just Google search it and it'll come up. And continue to share your feedback with us. I know we've only been given a certain amount of time here today, but we want to continue this conversation. So please, reach out, email, phone, what have you. Happy to provide my phone number to anyone who wants to speak. And also, I forgot, we brought candy too.
Yeah.
But forgot about it. So here, enjoy it.
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Here, enjoy.
Oh, yeah. Would you all want to take a photo for President Burwell?
Yeah. Marketing wants it for university, so. The other, Nina has a selfie stick.
Oh, I can take it. I can take it.
No, let me in it.
Well, no.
Nina has her selfie stick. Let Nina take it.
I don't want to do it.
It's so yummy though.
It's a lot of
Can we get everyone more so towards the middle?
Yeah. Come in, everyone.
Very
Come next to me.
on brand for me.
Oh, wait, are we taking it here?
Yeah, no.
It's like, I mean, something that was supposed to. Someone else got it before me.
That's a great point, Bob. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Be on brand.
That's
Oh my God, that's not a decision. And hopefully the next president picks it up, because if not, I mean, it's gonna happen because I'm.
You know, like at the end, you have a little bowl of candy. Oh, yeah, these ones take grams. Yeah. Strawberry.
Aside from that, if there's a lot of.
You gotta be quicker than that.
Or you have to throw a better shot. Both of y'all.
I'm like I don't know. I have a hostile.
I don't know how to get the timer.
Green one looks green. Wait, I want a lollipop.
You don't get a lollipop, Leela.
I want a lollipop. I want this one. It's a magic paw. It's a Tide Pod. It's a Tide Pod. I love Tide Pods.
Okay, guys. Let's go. Photo. Sorry, we gotta get.
Do you guys want to be?
Photo.
Oh my God. Everyone's yummy.
God's honest truth.
Cheers. Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile. Go. Okay.
I generally don't.
No.
You guys.
Look at the camera.
So smile. I'm not really trying to be out of place. Make it pretty.
Can I see it?
Just go.
Oh, there we go.
I want this out.
Yay. Wait, let's get the right side of the room. Check yourself before you actually stop sitting. It was him.
Like, I just turned around and there's one. I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
I literally on a trip to detox. This is so bad.
We're still forum, senators. We're still in public comment. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak at this time?
Say it again. Trevor, say that again.
Any member of the public wishing to speak at this time?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Seeing,
Your meeting's
yes.
I'm not sure of the graduate student name, but Valentina, I wanted to personally thank you for being here and taking the time out of your day to present that to us, and especially for sending out that email. Like, that was majorly important because that's how you have the community members here, as you said. So I wanted to thank you for doing that, because that is something to do. But I just want to make sure and pressure that you guys do bring back all the ideas we discussed today, and do bring back all of the voice that you heard, whether that be the senators or the people representing the senators or the students themselves. But I just wanted to make sure that that does happen, but also thank you guys very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for listening to us. If you have more specific ideas to better engage, please email us or email strategy@american.edu.
Any other member of the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to reports from officers. First to President Payano.
Hi, can you pull up the wonderful, I'm not gonna go to the front. It's gonna take literally 3 seconds, because I'm gonna let my beautiful staff members and team members to do most of the presenting. Home is gonna be open this Wednesday, March 28th from 4 to 5 p.m. Please make sure that you attend. We're gonna have food and we're gonna present not only this space, but the other spaces that we're trying to open up. And all I say to students is, please come, like, I know that home is a living room. I hear ya, I'm with ya. However, come support the student spaces that we have, so that then when we try to advocate for more student spaces, we have a concrete, like, case to make for it. So, like, swipe and usage is important for the upcoming leadership to come, and the student body to say, hey, we use this space is not enough, come and give us more spaces. Any questions?
Questions? Senator Andromeda.
They use statistics from the amount of people swiping for advocating for new ones. So make sure you don't hold the door open for anyone. Just be like, oh, hit your card so we can help that. Right. Yeah, just swipe it a bunch.
Right, and I will make sure on that point, the second phase of this opening is to also have a report by the end of my term, so that then I can talk about student experiences in the space, because I know that there's a lot of conflicting views. Okay, so sorry, I thought she was trying to but yeah, no, so please attend. I'd love to have Senate there. Show up, numbers matter, because of all, as much as we want education to be a civic thing, there's also a lot of business behind higher education, and numbers matter. Thank you.
We're working with Sarah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, I think they do.
I know, but I need a senator.
Sorry. Motion to give.
Thank y'all.
What's your name?
Mott. Thank you.
The motion is to give Mott speaking rights. May I recommend just giving public speaking rights?
There we go.
Motion to suspend the rules and give the public speaking rights.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of suspending the rules to allow public speaking rights during Senate, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay, now you may ask questions.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know how many people can fit in the home.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is, we're gonna open space, the home space, and then we're gonna have an open area for reception where we're gonna have doors. Is that your question?
No, in home, how many bodies can fit? Or how many people can get in home?
The occupancy, 10. 10. It's very low.
Okay.
It's very low. And that's what I'm saying, that I hear everybody's concern about it, and I'm trying to make sure that this doesn't only become the only space that we have. I talked to the person that is in charge of managing the projects of AU in terms of constructions, and there's a lot of constructing like plans for down the road. So what I'm trying to say is that although it's not a big space, it's important that we say that not the same people are using the space, but rather that other students are using the space, so that then when those plans do come up and we have more on campus and more space on campus, we can say, hey, students are using the space, we need more. And I know that it sounds painful, but like I said, it's nothing I can do. It's space wise.
It's not you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, it's not you.
So I know that like planning things is horrendous and like I get that's super hard. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to attend these times, but that is at the end of the workday. So is there going to be any sort of recap or any sort of different event for students who work from 9 to 5 in order to come? Is that
you read my mind? So what I'm trying to do is have different programming throughout the day by different organizations to raise awareness about whatever they want to raise. So if it's Latinx Student Month, Latinx Culture Month, they can go and do a presentation on Culture Month. I know that that's in October, but I know that we had a bill passed here in Senate about presenting flags throughout the month. So if we can do like an information session on Women's History Month, you know what I mean? So there is going to be programming on that space so that we can encourage more students to use it as well.
Thank you.
Senator Najafi?
Wait, I have a question. Is it open swipe access? Like anyone could swipe, or you
No, you have to. You have to
to.
request a swipe from student activities because there are a set of standard community guidelines that were set up because the entire purpose of home is to be able to understand. It's not a student. Okay, I'm going to start by prefacing. It's not a student government space. It's under campus. It's under OCL. Therefore, they had rules of engagement because the purpose of home is to allow different cultures to feel like people from different cultural backgrounds and different economic backgrounds, et cetera, marginalized groups to feel welcome in that space. Does that mean that people that do not fit those guidelines can't come? No, it just means that they need to respect and be open and willing to those ideals.
Okay, but so if we want to have people swiping, then should we encourage people to request it beforehand?
Yes, so that's part of this promotional push. The thing is that I honestly want people to use it, but I understand a lot of the restrictions the students have. So I'm gonna put it as in marketing. Me and Chris are working on how can we market it because it's pushing out tonight. So how can we market it so that people feel like they can sign up?
Question has elapsed.
Motion to extend questioning.
I can say to my report.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Is there still a motion?
Oh, I withdraw it.
Okay. All right, moving on to DEI Director Sestero.
Hi all. I said, so, as was passed by this body, there was a bill passed by this body to create a diversity survey, an internal diversity survey for AUSG. So what's going to happen? Right? We passed legislation, we want to act on that legislation. So, I'm saying, oh, this is what I realized. I want to show you guys the survey. The survey in terms of, so this is happening, right? Survey's happening, Senate's initiative. So I want to show you the survey, some of the questions that we're asking. And then this survey is going to go out tomorrow. In terms of timeline, we're giving the survey 2 weeks for all AUSG departments to fill out. And then after that 2-week period, the survey will close. There will be a 2-week period in which I gather the information and the data, write a report on this information and data. And then so open on the 26th tomorrow, close on the 9th of April. 2-week period of report and information gathering from the survey. The report will come out on the 22nd. And so the report will come out simultaneously with me presenting the report to this body and about the diversity. So we can start going over, first of all, just basically what branch of SG are you in? Because we know there's many, many branches of it. Indicate your primary schools of study. And you can select more than one of these. So if you're a double major, minor, whatever you feel, class, and then age. A lot of the things that you're going to see about these questions are so that we can, because I feel that as of talking from the sponsors from the bill, I feel that one of the reasons we wanted this survey was to see if our diversity within SG was representative of the diversity in the broader community, right? And so what one of the things about the questions is we're trying to format them in a way that then we then can take them and extrapolate them to the community and use them to compare the data that they already have from the community. So the questions might be a tad bit limiting, but that's so that we can, in order best compare to what we have in the outside and the data we've already received. So you guys, and you can go to the next one. You have to just click randomly, sorry. You're not gonna see that, so let me see. Oh. Anyway, here, so primary racial ethnic group, there's always a not listed category, right? So if you identify as something else, I have had a conversation with Sarah in CDI. I don't know if you know Sarah in CDI. She's assistant director of CDI. She's a wonderful woman. Love her little treat that she's got going, very great vibe she has in her office. But I have talked to her, and one of the things that she suggested was to make these questions as open-ended as possible, because we don't want to be excluding any categories or any identifications that people feel. But we have to strike that nice balance of being able to compare the data and also leaving it open-ended. So then we're asking international student, if you're an international student, your country of origin. Yeah, go ahead. I'll ask for like comments on it just quick at the end. I just want to go over it quickly. So then religion, I've reached out to Mark, who is the university chaplain, and he has given me the all the lists of religion that they have in their registrar. So all those are listed under religion, and there's also a not listed category where you can list if you identify as another reason. But if you click on the religion thing for a question for a second, there is tons. So, and then sexual orientation, these are where we started to leave it a little more open-ended, because this is where I feel that people's identity is very different and everyone's identity is very different. So we want to give them the opportunity to identify the way they wish to identify. And then finally, just at the end, I put the question of, do you want to continue to be engaged in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within SG and the broader community, so that I can begin to connect with the people that really are passionate about these issues, and we can begin to do some really meaningful work. So does anyone have any thoughts on the survey?
Questions?
Yeah, question.
So for the primary racial / ethnic group, what if you're of a mixed race and you don't?
So that, so we had thought about separating them. The problem with that is the way AU does it, which we can work on changing, is that they combine the two. What I will do is make it so that you can click multiple.
Yeah.
So that if you identify as multiple, you're able to click, if you identify as white and Caucasian and also Latino and Hispanic, as I do, I can click both of those boxes, right? And that allows us to better identify ourselves. Yeah. Senator
Ladies Proxy.
So I just want to thank you, Director Sesto, for actually implementing this program. I think would actually help create more diversity within AUSG.
Thank you.
Though I'm wondering why it says Latino and not Latinx, because I feel like Latinx is a more gender inclusive term than Latino.
Agreed. I can make that change. But sorry, that was a copy and paste from another survey. But does President Pano, you want to speak about it?
Because we need to establish what this is going to be used for, because if it's for internal purposes, we can make that change. Now, if what we want to do as SG is to say this is what we are comprised of, we don't have enough representation of the bigger scope of AU, we do need to keep it Latino, unfortunately.
Well, the only reason that Latino needs to be kept is because that is the term that AU uses.
Right.
For this survey, I would probably suggest that Latino be used, but the conversation can be had about how we identify as a larger community through CDI. I also have a meeting with the assistant provost of the Office of Research and Informational Data Collecting in AU or something like that. So I'm going to talk to her about generally how they survey AU and what she thinks of this, how we can better work with each other. So yeah, thank you for the question.
We're going to work on it. Can we go into more detail about why either using Latino or Latinx would impact what we need to do with it? Because the purpose of the survey is to, number one, get the lay of the ground to see of what the composition of AUSG is, and then also to know where we need to target our outreach. As far as I know, we don't have any plans to use this with like some university office that would not accept the data if it said Latinx or Latino. So can you go into that reasoning a little bit?
I can go into that detail. I am personally willing to change that. I need to first have that conversation with the assistant provost about whether she thinks that would skew the data that we're receiving. And if she doesn't feel that that's going to skew the data we're receiving, I'm happy to make that change. I just don't want to, and I completely understand being part of that community, why we are verging away from Latino, because it stereotypes those gender norms within the community. But I am happy to have that conversation with the assistant provost and with any, and before I push the survey out, I can even send her an email tonight before I push it out tomorrow. Yeah.
It's actually Middle Eastern North African. So because then we disregard countries like Egypt, Libya, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia.
I want to also say that this has gone through an extensive review process. Every director of every department in SG has seen this survey before it came to you. Also, Trevor has seen it, and Ayana, the director of student activities, has seen this survey. So that was set up in the bill as the committee that would review the survey before it gets done. And then in my position as DEI director, I would be the one to push the survey out and do all the outreach and reporting. Yeah, go ahead.
Super nitpicky, and I'm sorry, but like it says, please indicate you and your.
You forgot the R.
You forgot the your.
You identify.
Sorry, I just like don't want it to be missed.
No, thank you.
With
No
the
problem.
survey.
No, wait, that's correct.
Wait, that's.
Are you on the top question?
No.
It just says, please indicate the primary racial/ethnic group with which you.
No.
Oh.
If you answered yes to the last question, please indicate you nation of origin.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's it.
Thank you.
I'm an editor.
Further questions?
Further questions on the survey?
Senator Fryer.
So I will, just a quick comment. This is going to go through more reviewing, so let's veer away from nitpicking. I appreciate it. My grammar's not my best suit, but I just want to have a general conversation about the survey instead of grammar nitpicking because I know we don't want to leave. Yeah, go ahead. Who was that?
Senator Fryer.
Senator Fryer.
I'm just wondering, like, can we access this to look on our own, or is it not launched yet?
So it's not launched. On Monday, I will send out, in coordination with Chris Schneider, the survey to everyone in SG. So anyone who has an SG email is currently in SG will get this survey to fill out, to look over, and then have the survey done by the date was April 9th, I believe. Yeah, April 9th. Any other questions?
Senator Jaffe.
I just want to say thank you so much to Raphael for doing this, and this is an incredible example of like a bill actually being executed and doing something with it, and I think that's something to celebrate. So I just want to say thank you.
All right, questioning has elapsed. Senator Lee's process. There's a motion to extend questioning by 5 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor of extending the questioning by 5 minutes, say yay. Yay. All those opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the yays have it.
So I just want to quickly touch on Leland's point. In terms of bills that you guys pass and the execution of them, I know one of the things that was brought up earlier today was the flag bill, right? So I would urge you all to reach out to the people that your bills affect in terms of, I know I see you, in terms of who's going to execute them, right? You have power to execute them yourself, but there's also people within other branches of the AUSG that can help you execute these, right? Me and Leila had a conversation, we moved them forward, and now it's coming out on Monday, right? So it's very, yeah, go ahead.
That's a great point, actually. So in regards to the flag bill that I wrote with Mulan, I've tried to actually reach out to the right people to execute them, and they've either never responded to my messages or I've just been on hold for the past few months. So I'm willing to actually pay out of pocket now.
Well, so I would love
to know what to do, because sometimes it's just like the non-responsiveness of those people who are in the position.
So I think the flag bill, as I've read the flag bill, has a lot to do with, the diversity and inclusion here at AU. So I would love to have that conversation with you. Perfect. And see where I can help you in moving forward in that, because I have had conversations already, because it's been in the back of my mind with certain university officials about the feasibility of this.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So would love to have a conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this required?
So this survey is not required, but it is encouraged because we do want to make sure we're a representable body of the students that we're a part of.
I just want to say in regards to the flag bill, Raphael did like reach out to me and he was like, let's work on this. And he really wants to take the initiative on it. So he's a great resource. And we kind of got caught up in this survey. So we were like, we want to get this done and then move on to the next. So
we'd love to join you.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it. I would love to sit down with someone. I remember like I contacted certain individuals. I even talked to Fonta over the phone. Like I'm willing to just pay out of pocket for this. Like I'm willing to go find those organizations and set up a time. I know the kind of plan, the event structure that Fonta and I set up. Okay. It's just like I really need somebody, an executive, to fund it because that's the second step,
I'm
right?
happy to talk about how we move forward.
All right, just a reminder that this is questioning for the director.
Senator O'Connor.
Yeah, I have a question. Remember the public brought up this is required. I forget, was this the result of a bill that we passed?
What'd you say?
This was the result of a bill we
This is the result of bill. I don't remember the exact number, but it was co-written or co-sponsored by Senator Jaffe, Senator Dantzler, and Senator Burgers.
So what do you think about making it mandatory?
Well, the bill did not describe a mandatory part of that, a clause of that bill. I think it's a discussion that could be had. I veer away from mandatory only because if there are people, me, myself included, who are struggling to identify as a certain kind of identity, right? And this survey, they may not be in the time of self-discovery when they can fill this out. Senator Dantzler?
I would just say, like, I don't know how we can force people to take a survey, like, unless we, like, strap it down to a table and, like, do this. So I don't know how we can force people in SG to take it. They don't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sorry. Actually, well, never mind. So.
I feel like being that, like, a lot of SGs are, like, they're positions, and I feel like you should have requirements in being in a position. So, like, requiring that they do a survey should be very minimal in the fact that, like, you're simply letting your constituents know who's representing them. And especially when a lot of these positions are applied, it shouldn't be an issue for that to be, mandatory as a part of the acceptance of your position.
And I'm happy to have that requirement conversation with the committee that is helping me do the survey, which includes all the directors. So if I get their on boardness, they have a much easier time of requiring their staff to fill out the survey than I would as DEI director. So I'm happy to have that conversation about whether we think it should be required or not.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but we have spent a little bit of time talking about it. So section 2B of the bill under survey details does say the survey is required of all students participating in any branch of AUSG.
Oh, does it?
So I think, would you think when we have that conversation with the committee, that it should focus on whether or not to have that, because that seems to be the pressing.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm happy to have that conversation. Yeah, Senator Jaffe.
It is required, but again, we can't force anyone to do anything against their will. And so just like teacher evaluations, they're required, but not everyone does them. And so it's not going to be forced upon
Is this a question?
Highly encouraged. So don't you think that that's mostly the directors?
I agree that we cannot force someone to take a survey necessarily in the broad schemes of things. You can't strap someone down to a survey. But
questioning for the director has elapsed.
Motion to extend questioning by.
I know you want to get extra.
There's a motion to extend questioning until the questions until there are no more questions. Is there a second? There's a second. Is there any all those in favor of extending questioning until no more questions, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
In the opinion of the chair, the nays have it. Thank you, Director.
I got more.
I got more. Hey, I'm sorry, that was rude. I think you're doing a great presentation.
Okay, quickly, I'll move quickly. That's next, but first, Spring Cultural Festival happened this Saturday. It was a lovely event. Thanks to everyone who attended, all of them who was on the committee, President Payano, who was the MC and who helped coordinate it. great event. We've heard that not just from our perspective, but students have been reaching out saying it was a great event. We've seen it over social media. A lot of the administration has reached out saying it was a great event. So that was great. We had great performances, a ton of student performances. Those groups are amazing. It's really great to see them get out into the community and perform what they have. There was great food thanks to Aramark. We had food from 4 regions of the globe.
Asia, Latin America, Middle Eastern, and
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean.
It was great. Aramark really came through on that, and the food was great. And then what I will just encourage you to think about is this event was part of a larger campaign. That the idea came to me and President Payano through the director of the International Students and Scholar Services Department, Director Bakar, about how do we become more inclusive, right? And the campaign is called #IamTheOther, right? So we're not very inclusive of the others here at American University. So these videos are us saying, I am the other. My name is Rafael Sestero. I am from state, country, whatever you identify as. I am an undergraduate student at American University. I'm the director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at U. I make AU. So it's the notion that, and these videos, we would love for you to make these and post them over social media so that people, with the hashtags, #IamTheOther and #IMakeAU, so that people can see the diversity that we have on this campus and that this is what makes up AU. I didn't send the picture, but I'll share the picture. We had a map at this event of people posting where they're from. And the amount of post-its that are so global is such a mind-opening experience to understand that AU encompasses the globe, right? There's so many people here from very different backgrounds. And that's what makes up AU, right? That's why we came to AU. It's why we love AU, right? So it was a great event. You want something to say?
And it was also an idea and an effort to connect international students with domestic students. We have a lot of conversation about why international students.
Time for presentation has elapsed.
Motion to extend time for presentation indefinitely.
Okay, there's a motion to extend the presentation indefinitely. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay.
Anyway, so it's an effort because a lot of our international students do not feel like they're part of this university. So how do we do that and how do we include them? So I encourage everybody. I heard from a lot of students like, this was fun, we should have another one. So I encourage the people that are trying to continue this or trying to stay here, because I'm a senior, to think about maybe putting it up next year.
Yeah, thank you. So then I'll move on unless there's any questions about the cultural festival.
Keeping your presentation. This is still presentation.
Yeah, this is still presentation.
This is still, you're still presenting.
So then, Affordable Housing Symposium. So we're AUSG, AULAC, and the SPA Metropolitan Policy Center has come up, has decided that the conversation of affordable housing is not had on campuses, basically. And it's an issue that impacts a lot of marginalized communities here, right? It's an issue that we're going to face the minute we leave the campus and graduate in May, if you're a senior, or whenever you leave the campus, right? So we're bringing a few speakers who have knowledge of this people and a diverse panel, right? So we have 2 professors. It's going to be moderated by Karen Gullah, who's associate professor in the School of SIS. She's written a book about kind of gentrification, affordable housing, and that's very knowledgeable. If you realize he has the same name as me, that's my father.
Your future.
Was the former commissioner of housing for New York City under the Bloomberg administration, and he is very knowledgeable about it. He comes from Puerto Rico. And then we're going to have Derek Hyra, who's the associate professor in SPA, also director of the Metropolitan Policy Center. He's done great work. His center does great work, and he's going to be very knowledgeable about the topic. And then finally, Ali Solis, who is currently the CEO of Make a Room USA, which is a company that focuses on bringing the issue of lack of affordable rental housing in a different light than just lobbying government for things. Her company does a media campaign about it, right? How do we bring important, powerful people into the discussion and so that it can reach a larger audience? So it's going to be a great panel, April 10th, 6:30 to 8:30, McDowell Forum. We'd love if you could all attend. It's a really great issue. There's a lot of nuance to it, and it was going to be a great panel. And then Finally, so much. Okay. Oh, we've done a soft launch of this event, by the way, emailing to the panel so they can email their networks, a few departments here at AU. The official launch will go on social media on Wednesday. I would love if you all could share that out so we can get the word out about the event. Finally, as you all know, the Latinx and the Black graduation banquets are happening. The Black graduation is on April 22nd. Latinx graduation is on the 28th. Those are going to be great events. A lot of hard work has gone into planning those. And those are things, a nice example of how we continue inclusive and diverse programming over years, because both of those have been happening for more than 1 year. And finally, I just wanted to touch on, because Senator Lee's proxy had talked about it, the Latinx community did have a meeting with PCDI this past Friday, which was a great meeting. I felt like a lot of student leaders got their voices heard and their concerns heard, but also were able to talk about the concerns of their members and have PCDI listen to those. What else? Sorry. PCDI is a great resource. They are amazing at facilitating conversations. Colleen Jennings, who is the co-chair with Jeff, I'm gonna blank on his last name.
Yeah, he's great. He's the dean of SOC.
He's the dean of SOC. The two of them are really great on facilitating conversations within communities and across communities. So me, as director of DEI, and President Payano, who also sits on the committee, is happy to connect any of you if you feel like your community would love to have that conversation with PCDI, to Colleen and Jeff about how we can format that conversation with the communities that you're in, because it's a really good resource that we have here on campus. And I think that is it for me. Any questions? Yeah.
Any further questions for the director?
Yeah, Mom.
This is going back to the requirement thing. It's concerning that, Senate, who is there for accountability, is running from such a little form of accountability to require SG members to fill out a survey. So if you're so scared of just holding your own members accountable of filling out a simple survey, how could you be expected to hold any other level of administration or executive leadership accountable? And then side note about this event, affordable housing is something that affects Black people in the LGBT community so much, yet there is a clear lack of representation.
So I actually just touched on your point. I reached out to David Bowers, who is the regional director for Enterprise, which does a lot of work on affordable housing as an African American, and he was just unfortunately unable to attend the event at this instance. And due to the time constraints we had, because it was the end of the year, I wasn't able to reach out to anyone else. But I will say that I'm trying to make this an ongoing series so that we have another event in next semester. So I'm happy to work with you if you know anyone in the field to bring some more, to bring the African American voice and the LGBTQ voice into our next series in this segment. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes.
Just as a suggestion, we have a point system in Senate. So let's say for this survey, if you're not able to fill it out, that's like one ding. It's a form of accountability that we can be
Is this a
including.
question?
What do you think?
I will definitely look into that point survey and see how that is. According to the bill, which is what I'm acting on, the survey is required. So until further notice, I'm acting under the directive of the Senate bill, and the survey will be mandatory unless I will inform all of you otherwise if that has changed. Any questions?
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you all.
Trevor, I believe I shared my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep it quick, fresh, exciting. We have some big announcements to discuss with you all. I'm very pumped on two quick things that I was gonna say before, but I wanted to wait to my report. First, if you're interested on how to sign up for home, the link is on Case Connect.
Yay!
So, tell your friends, plug it, Case Connect, caseconnect.org. I'm pretty sure it's a great resource. If you haven't heard about it, I'm in a great mood today. We're gonna have a good report. So use, yes. It's a great online resource to learn about university policies and procedures and home. The second thing is I totally understand the points made by Senator Jaffe and Senator Danzler about it's difficult to get people to do surveys. My response is if they don't do it, fire them. If they're I'm being honest, if you're not in compliance with our laws, see ya, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a good point, it's a good point. So that's my solution for it. Okay, so next slide, thank you. So I just wanted to show you guys some photos from my spring break. I had a great spring break. I hope you all had a great spring break. I went to New Orleans. It was a great time. What did you say? You were there? I didn't know that. Yes. That's a photo for me in a parade. That's a photo of me on the street. That actually I took yesterday, but I like the photos. So
Why are you smiling?
Snag it in there. I know I'm smiling. I'm smiling at one of them. But I hope you all had a great spring break. I'm excited and happy to be back. So this semester, Case has been working very, very hard. As always, that's our MO. That's what we do. We've been working hard in addition to our casework on a number of different policy projects. The first that I wanted to say, discuss with you all, not all of you might know this, but in addition to my job as the case director, I am also the director of student support. That was a position that the former president gave me in addition to my job now. And so I made two new hires that I wanted to make sure that the Senate knew about. The first is I hired a deputy director for sexual assault prevention. The job of student support is sort of all-encompassing. It's a very large mandate. It really handles providing services and resources for students on campus to support them with all aspects of their life as a student. And so I thought it was important to hire someone specific for sexual assault prevention. The job is so big and I can't handle all of it. I'll be the first to admit it. And so I thought it was appropriate to hire someone there. Her name is Claire. She's very qualified, very good at her job, and she's already working. The next position is I hired a deputy director for basic needs, excuse me. That is actually your former colleague, Yasmin Hakami. I'm very excited for her to hold this new position. The deputy director for basic needs will be responsible for leading advocacy relating to food insecurity, housing insecurity, and campus-based support systems for students. Additionally, the deputy director will assist the director with department-wide projects and will serve as a liaison to the Senate to ensure that there's a constant and open line of communication between my office and all of you. I'm very excited about both of these hires. I think the basic needs position is very important. And I also will be recommending to whoever ends up winning the upcoming election, the next president, to make both of these positions elevated to full directorships. I think that these positions should have a more authority and a full mandate to serve not under me, but alongside me in the president's cabinet, in addition to a number of positions that I think should be there. I think it was, at this point, an unquestionable mistake of the former president to remove a lot of those directorships. And so I'm hoping that this experiment of having them as deputy directors and then putting them, hopefully, as the next directors will restore some sort of a greater level of authority for these positions in the president's cabinet. I made the first one under our interim president, Christine, and then the second position was made with the permission of our current president, Yami Payano. So I'm very excited for them to be joining me and joining our cabinet. Okay, thank you. Next, something that I have been waiting to say for virtually a year now, I am excited to announce that the implementation of the infamous student rights cards is officially beginning. Very excited. President Payano and I, who I will thank in a moment because she has been like a day one advocate for this project. The minute, not even the minute she became president, since she started campaigning, has been talking about the student rights cards and has been so critical in helping us work with the university to get them implemented. But we have been negotiating with the university for the past month on bringing forward implementation. I'm excited to say that it's happening now. We are doing it in two phases, and the first phase is actually underway as we speak. The first phase involves the cards being placed in all MGC elevators, the MGC lobby, and in spaces within the library. We are hoping that that'll be finished by March 31st. I'm very excited that we're going to be putting them in the elevators. I don't know about you, but anytime I'm in, what's it called? What's that restaurant called that's near Starbucks? Megabytes. Sorry, Megabytes. Yeah, wow, okay. Anytime I'm in Megabytes ordering food, I take that MGC elevator up. So every single elevator within those little posting boards will have one of the student rights cards. It's going to hit a lot of students. I'm very excited about that. And then the second phase, which is the more important, I would say, phase of the implementation, will occur over the summer by July and will involve each card being placed in every single residence hall lobby and every single residence hall and every single floor on both sides by July. And so I'm very excited, both because I think it's a practical tool and resource that's now going to be made available in a permanent form to every single student on our campus. And also because, and while this wasn't really the intent of the project, sort of an unintended benefit is that this is the first time, I would say, that the university is working with student government and with students in general to acknowledge the list of this information and these specific guarantees as rights that students enjoy and will always enjoy. Not as sort of policies that can be yanked back, but as genuine rights that are guaranteed to the student body. That has never happened before. And so I'm very excited that for the first time, we had that clear acknowledgement, not just because we're saying it, but because the university is honoring it, that these are rights that students have to be able to have access to. And I'm very excited about that. So I did want to say,
Time has elapsed for presentation.
Thank you.
There's a motion to what?
Extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
There's a motion to extend the speaking time by 5 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We're good.
Thank you. So I did want to say a huge thank you to President Payano. She has been such a huge help. I really do mean it. Having a president who genuinely believes in this project and shares our commitment for advancing student rights has meant the world. She is 100% an ally. She's with me in every single meeting. She's on the massive email chains when I'm complaining or yelling or getting angry. She calms me down, and it would not happen without her, to be genuinely honest with all of you. So I really do thank you for that.
Thank you. This is
No, we're a good team, and I love working with President Payano, so I'm excited about this. Next, I wanted to share with you all that the long-awaited bias-related instance report will be published this week online on the student government website. We'll do a little promotional so that every single student has access to it. The full title of the joint report is Combating Hate at American University, Accounting for Bias Incidents Through the Student Conduct Code. It's a joint report with President Payano and Director Sestero. We have, over the course of this semester and last semester, done 3 listening sessions that are open to the public, specifically the student body, to provide feedback and thoughts on the report. We provided the report to administrators within the Office of Campus Life, and we've examined and reviewed the policies at 10 peer institutions and provided that research within the report to make our recommendations. The sole recommendation of the report is that we are asking the university to include language in the conduct code to make bias-related incidents a standalone violation listed under the prohibited behaviors of the conduct code. There is language in the conduct code already because of our previous report last year about bias-related incidents, but it's not yet listed as an actual violation. I want to make sure that when someone commits a bias-related incident, for all intents and purposes, a hate crime, that they are actually convicted of a bias-related incident and that is on their record forever and that they can't hide from it or try to get away with it or avoid retribution for it. And so I want it very clearly, if I could tattoo it, I would. I'm not gonna get away with doing that, so I'll put it in the damn conduct code. And to be fair, the university has been very receptive to the idea. They've been very helpful with the report. They've been working with us on it. Both Dr. Raw and Katie Forrest, the head of the conduct office, have been great resources and very receptive to the idea. They are looking at the language right now. They've been moving it along to different offices. And we're making it public now, both because I want every student to know what we're recommending and why we're recommending it. And also because I have a very positive feeling that as we move into negotiations towards the end of the year with the Conduct Advisory Board, which is the body that deals with language changes, that it is likely to be accepted in some format. And so I want to make sure students know what we're proposing. Okay, how much time do I have, by the way?
2 minutes.
Okay, I can do this. So yes, Conduct Advisory Board, just so you all know, like I said, that's the body that makes changes to the conduct code, proposes them to the university, and then the Board of Trustees confirms them. We're going to have those meetings towards the end of the semester. We have 2 student representatives. One of them is Senator Hawk, and the other I'll be recommending shortly, which will be our Senior Policy Advisor, Mott Sargent. News to you, but congrats.
Thanks.
She leads our policy department along with our Deputy Director of Policy. And so it's a natural fit there. And they'll be making the case for the report's recommendations. However, if anyone from the Senate has any recommendations for language changes, it's not just about the report. Everything is up for grabs. Any additions you want to make, any changes, any removals. The Conduct Advisory Board has students, faculty, and administrators on it, and we can discuss any changes. And so if any senators are looking at the conduct code, they're very passionate about something, please let us know. Please let me know or one of the 2 representatives because we can make those recommendations on your behalf. And then lastly, I just wanted to share with you all a partnership or a project that I've been partnering with the secretary on. We now have a live chat / intake system on our website through AUSG.org. Students can now go online and actually speak live with an advocate. The benefit to the system is twofold. First, there's an anonymous function to the live chat. And so if students don't feel comfortable speaking to an advocate, if they are nervous, if they're maybe a little bit embarrassed about a situation they're in, especially now that we handle so many things, including financial aid, there are a lot of students who are a little hesitant to speak with us because they're nervous about explaining their situation to an advocate. This is a good sort of entryway to get their foot in the door, to start talking about it, to learn about our confidentiality policy so they feel a little bit more comfortable. We don't take on any cases, of course, unless we know their name and their information, but it's a good way to acclimate people. The second impact and benefit, I think, is that the live chat also provides, doubles as an intake system. So we're developing a form that will also be on the AUSG.org website that functions similarly, that in the future, every single case application will go through. So there will be no more emailing me or emailing case@AUSG.org or going through Case Connect. It'll be one unified form that every single case will be submitted through, so that we have an online database of every single case that we've ever adjudicated ever, which will both be good for organizational purposes in-house in our office, but will be good for other reasons as well. Thank you, everyone.
Questions for the director? Senator Zitzman.
Have you made any inroads with the university administration since the last time you reported to the Senate on Case's new financial casework?
Yes, so we've spoken to, I don't know his title, but I believe he is the second in command of AU Central. Over email, we set up a meeting this week, very positive conversations. I think they were a little hesitant at first about the idea of students working with students on financial aid, primarily because of FERPA protected information. The point at which they knew that we already handle FERPA protected information, I think they felt a little bit more comfortable. So I'll be able to report to you next Sunday on how the conversations went, but I feel good about it. I'm waiting to announce it to the student body. We have a huge, massive media campaign already put together to get it out to the student body. Until I've waited until to have this meeting. Once I had it, then we're going to release it. The timing will work anyway. Sorry, you're getting more info than you've bargained for. The timing will be beneficial anyways, because if we're doing it at the end of the semester, that's when a lot of students are figuring out that their award might not be what they thought it was, and they're going to make appeals. But we've also handled cases, and it's been going very well. Some students heard through the grapevine. The cases we've handled have been going very, very well.
Dr. Sestero.
In terms of your conduct code review and
Yes.
new conduct code issues, we have been in conversation with AUPD. Do you agree that we have been in conversations with AUPD about how the student conduct code is actually the governing document that AUPD has been acting under in terms of identification on campus? I know there's been a big question with the recent incidents.
Yes.
So what me and Director Mascaro and President Payano have been working on is talking with AUPD, also setting up those listening hours that happened that we got great feedback for the students in the tavern. But what I was told by Chief Morse and Lieutenant Seafree and Captain Sowers was that under the student conduct code, there is a clause that says, and we're in the works of digging through the conduct code for more clauses like this, but there's a clause that says all students must comply with directives from university officials. And so what a university official is anyone who officially who works for this university. So that is even a desk receptionist at one of the residence halls. So when they ask you for your ID, you are required to give it to them. But ID does not necessarily mean your AUID. We know we leave our AUIDs places. It can be a state ID. It can just be your name and date of birth. So they can look you up. So I just wanted to clarify that because I know that had been some questions about that. And so, do you agree with that? Yes. Thank you.
Agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what you said.
Try to teach me accountability procedure.
How would you feel if I said that I am extremely proud and grateful that this has happened because of the fact that when I was a first-year student here, I worked on the Students' Rights Working Board my first semester underneath President Devante, and I, have seen what went wrong with that and what has gone on beyond that. So I just wanted to stay and see what your opinions are as a student and as a actual, well, I know we're all students, but as just a student out in the university, making sure that you guys are actually caring for us and making sure that you're actually reaching out to us. I really appreciate it and just wanted to get your response on that.
Well, thank you. It was very nice. It was my favorite question so far. I really appreciate it. And what I would say is, yes, you make a great point. I do want to thank President Torriente, to be honest, because he, I would say, gave me the green light to start this project last year, and I really do appreciate that. What I would say is that this is a very exciting project, and I do think it will help a lot of students. This is, on one hand, a tool sort of equipping students with this information that, of course, that they have access to through the website, and the university is doing a better job of trying to compile it, but it is not very accessible up until this point. So the card really eliminates a lot of those barriers. To be honest with you, the reason why I kicked myself into gear and worked really hard over the summer and now to get this project done, and why I was very adamant at a certain hearing last semester for you to all allow me to keep doing it, is because at the May Town Hall last year after the hate crime, the first question I got from the former director of diversity and inclusion in student government, Lauren Lumpkin, was that she didn't know how to report a hate crime on campus. If one of the most powerful senior members of our student government doesn't know where to go to report a hate crime on campus, as an African-American woman, by the way, clearly there's an issue, you know? And so I'm excited that this card will hopefully, God forbid another hate crime comes, but when it happens, will make it easier for that student to know where to go immediately. And the other, okay.
Questioning has elapsed. Senator Adams.
Motion to accept questioning by
Thank you. And if you guys want me to stop talking, I don't mind.
By what?
By what? By
5 minutes.
By 5 minutes, is there a second? There's a second. All those in favor of extending by 5 minutes, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay.
And then the last piece I would say is just this, is that it, like I said before, it is very important that the university has, for the first time, acknowledged a document full of rights for the student body as actual rights. We don't have a lot of leverage at this school, you know? We don't have a lot of institutional power. It's not an AU thing, it's just any private university. So having something that we can point to and say, no, these are my rights, by the way, is a big step forward. And last piece is that I really hope that the next president, one, has a mindset that this is not a job that you sit back and let the year go by. It's a job where you really have to work all the time to get something done. And when someone tells you no, to really keep going and don't take that first no for an answer. Yami is a really good example for anyone who's thinking about running for president. Look at how hard this person works. And if you're not willing to work that hard, stop running, because that's really how hard it is to be president. She does a really good job at it. She sets a really good example. I'm just going to end it there before I go off on 15 more tangents, but thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Is it okay if I can frame this comment in a question?
I don't
raising my
mind.
voice,
I
okay, I'll
personally
just do it. So there's a initiative that I'm actually working on, but I was working on it for the past 2 months. And it is in regards to basic or food security on campus. So around 48% of our students are food insecure and 56 are eligible for the SNAP program. I'm working with 2 other nonprofits in DC called DC Hunger Resolutions and DC Greens, along with SUMS, which is So Others Might Eat. And we're going to be hopefully doing a lot of advocacy for students to sign on to the SNAP program. I'll be, sending you guys this link. Please look at it. Please post it everywhere. For example, recently I learned that I'm eligible for SNAP. You might find out that you're also eligible for SNAP. Most students, in fact, are eligible for SNAP. It's just doing the outreach like other universities are doing. For example, UC Berkeley has done an amazing job in their basic needs initiative and just reaching out to, random students, faculty members, workers, and just being like, hey, make sure that, you remind somebody when they walk by that this exists and they can use this if they need. So this is a really good way to just connect student government with also the greater DC community, and then give you guys what you need. If somebody needs food, this is obviously an option. So just please be on the lookout for that. I think it'll be really helpful, and you guys might even find something beneficial from it too. Just
a question.
Beneficial from it too.
Question mark? I agree.
Question mark?
I agree with that question. Yeah.
Yes.
This is kind of in regards to what you said about the sections about you requiring ID from any AU official or whatever. I think that it's definitely important that that's noted, because the Black community specifically is very concerned with the increased police presence, especially because it's often us being asked for our IDs. So, and just historically, the way that, abuse happens to Black folks is by saying they're criminalized, by saying they've broken a rule or something. So that the inclusion of that rule is basically how AU can get away with treating students however they want. So I think that or I guess the question would be, as a follow-up report, would senators be willing to like support, well, I just encourage senators to support, any follow-up reports that may encourage the conduct code to remove those added. Yeah.
I agree with that question. And I would also say that I think the Conduct Advisory Board meeting will be a good time to talk to the university about how we can, to be honest with you, I don't think they're ever going to get rid of that sentence, because the point you made, it's a very strong point that they put that in there so that they have great leeway in the way in which they handle things. It's not bad or good, it is. But I do think that there should be a conversation about how we can have some sort of addendum, whether it's in the code or another policy, that might make students feel a little bit more comfortable when they have an altercation like that, particularly students that are going to be uncomfortable by that situation.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Any further questions for the director?
Frame it in a question again. I'm sorry. So something that Will, me, and Rafael have been working on is to compile the list of conduct codes, clauses that apply to AUPD and make that a report that is going to be public through case. However, we want to be very intentional in letting the student body know that case does not oversee AUPD. So we're gonna work so that you guys get the information that you need, that we're advocating on your behalf, while at the same time keeping that idea that we do not control AUPD. Will you agree, Director?
100%.
Questioning has elapsed.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Moving on to Comptroller Machovic.
Oh, I wanted to go higher. Thinking about my house. Thinking for 2 hours for this.
Director.
Hello, everyone. Again, Comptroller's report. I'll make this quick because I'm really impatient right now. Okay, so for January, co-sponsorship with Caribbean Circle, Chipotle fundraiser for the class of 2020, council and Solomon's cabinet. January and February, we're finally getting through the reconciling the payment for the student rights cards. Blessed for that. And then the Jason Kinder Key for You event, next one. For February, we had our Nation Builder expenditure. So that was really expensive. And then Chris finagled that into them refunding us money. So I just put that as one line item because I'm not going to do that twice. And then Toronto Burkane, that was incredible. Battle of the Bands was put on by Sub. And then we bought office supplies for Senate at the end of the month. And so March, lots of Chris sponsorship, Caribbean Circle, the Oscars party. I don't remember what the letters are. I think it's DKA. And then Relay for Life will be going on in April. And then the Spring Cultural Festival, that was yesterday. And then Yavila McCoy came and Dolce Sloan was last night.
Great event.
So great event. Things you should come out to. Next, this is the big budget. It should be on the website soon. I emailed Brian and Chris already, so if it's not up there, not my fault. You can email me, comptroller@ausg.org, anything you need to talk to me about. Only Chris has his office phone memorized. We all have office phones. Does Chris call it sometimes, his own phone?
People
Yes.
call Chris's office phone all
Yeah,
the
people
time.
call Chris's phone.
He's never there to answer.
Yeah,
but no big deal.
he's not, but yeah. If you need
I'll answer
any
it.
more, that's yeah. So, yes. Any questions?
Any questions for the Comptroller?
Ooh, nice and quick there, Christine.
See?
Yeah.
None. Thank you. Okay.
Use the bathroom now.
Christine, these are all put on the website, right?
Huh?
This is all put on the website.
Whenever Chris or Brian does it, it's, I don't have access to that.
What are the queries?
Yes, point of inquiry.
Does the Senate have quorum?
What?
Okay, I withdraw my question.
Okay, real quick, one, office hours should have occurred this past week. Not many signed in, so please remember that office hours are going on. Two, we had a few We had a few suspensions for senators, and unfortunately, we had no one wanted to petition them, so we are down a few senators, now to 21. Given that, I've created a new application form for Senate positions that will be going, that I already put on the Facebook page that are open, but then sending out hopefully a mass email sometime this week for more people to apply. We currently have 2 campus at large positions open. We have a class of 2019 seat open. We have 4 2018 seats, a co-god, and a school of communication seat all open. So if you know people that are interested in the Senate and want to apply and serve here, let them know about that application. And then on that note, remember that, everything's being recorded. I'm keeping up-to-date records. So if you're not signing in for office hours, it's counting against you. If you're not logging your event attendance, it's going to count against you. If you don't let me know that you're not going to be at a meeting or designate a proxy 3 hours in advance, that's going to count against you. Just remember those policies. It's in the bylaws under that large section. And then on top of that, event attendance for March is due by next Sunday, by the start of the meeting, because that's finishing out March. So remember to do that. I'll send out the link for the Google form again. Additionally, I met with Dr. Ah on Friday, and we were talking about how to, sort of improve the functionality of Senate and trying to increase the collaboration between senators and the resources that the university can offer. And so between Dr. Ah, myself, and President Payano, we're working on a plan to streamline those processes. That way you're not always coming against these obstacles, or the university's not responding to you or not interested in what you're doing. We're working on trying to figure out, what the university wants from us and what the Senate wants from the university. That way we're not continuously going through these roadblocks. I talked to CRP about, I will be requiring all Senate committees to meet this week, because in conversations with Dr. Ah, I sent her the legislative agenda that we all put together. And so the committees this week, your goal is to convene, go over the goals that you set for your committee and see where you're at, where you want to go from here. We still have, I think, 5 regular meetings left before the end of the semester. So don't fall off now, keep pushing forward. We're going to you're in this position until October, so you have plenty of time to still work on initiatives. But yeah, so definitely make sure that you meet for your committees, and then the Special Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will be having an election for their vice chair to fill that role and get another person to the CRP. And I think that's everything that I had. Questions for me? Senator Robbins.
I just wanted to clarify, Trevor, if you had office hours on Wednesday, but the university was closed, it wasn't counted.
Yeah, Wednesday's not counting against you. Senator Najafi.
What's the update on working with the faculty senate? Has there been any establishment?
Yes. So I finally have a meeting with the chair. Not this Thursday, but next Thursday. She's been very busy with conferences and out for family matters, so it's been hard to get into her schedule, but I'll finally be able to meet with her and talk to her about that. So hopefully, after meeting with her by the end of at least this semester, we'll have some plans to start moving forward when we come back for after summer recess. But I'm still in communications with her about that.
Oh, who is the chair?
Her name's Dr. Andrea Pearson.
She's my teacher. I thought that was, I just want to check.
Yeah. Senator Fryer.
Where's the form to record the attendance event?
Well, currently you have it in your email from a previous email that I sent you, but I'll send it out again today when I send out the speaker summary. Other questions? Okay, cool. Moving to reports from committees. First, the Special Committee on Finance.
Yeah, so I just have three quick things. The first is that we referred Bobby's kill switch bill without amending it because it's pretty simple. I'm sure he'll explain when we get to that in old business. The second thing is the finance report is coming along. People are starting to work on it. So obviously, like the bill that we passed a couple of meetings ago, mandates that it's going to be done by April 15th. So we're working on that. And the third thing is the budget hearing process. I think is going to start to come up and start soon. So I'm going to be talking with Vice Chair Burgess and also Speaker Pugh and others to get that started.
Questions for the chair? Senator Robbins.
Just following up from the special meeting, I don't know if you met this week, but has there been a discussion amongst the members about reallocating of funds for different groups that came out? Because in my conversations with them, they're still incredibly frustrated with that. So I don't know if there's a move towards thinking about that in your committee.
Right. So, I mean, the allocation happens within the budget, with the BAC. So those meetings come later in April, I believe, and it's going to be me, the president of AUSG. But I do know that President Payano sent an email requesting a sort of meeting to discuss the issue amongst various leaders, such as myself and others who have who hold stakes in this issue. So once that meeting happens, I'll report on it.
Other questions for the chair? Seeing none, we'll move to CRP. So we considered both Bill 24 and 25. CRP recommended both bills to full Senate without any changes as well. So they are as they stand. And then, yeah, that's it. Just as a reminder, committees are to meet this week before next meeting as sort of a recap, like just convene after spring break, talk about where we are, where you want to go, how can I help you further? How can you continue working on the policy initiatives that you are interested in? So, any questions for CRP? Seeing none. All right. Moving to new business. Is there any new business? Seeing none. We will move to old business. First, to Bill 17-18023, a bill to eliminate the kill switch. Would the sponsor like to speak on the bill?
Sure. So I had thought that this was simple enough and I might not need to speak on it today, but throughout the past week and at the committee meeting, I've explained it a couple times, so I'll just explain it one more time for everyone. So this, in general, was a recommendation in the list of recommendations that the committee to create the student government code came out with, and I think this is the most important one. And what this is, basically the Budget Advisory Committee, as some of you know, is a group consisting of representatives from student government, student media board, and club council, all of which receive money from the student activity fee. And those representatives work out the distribution and disbursement of student activity fee money. Now, that BAC was established a few years ago through a charter that was written by a commission from representatives from those three umbrella groups, and that charter was ratified by each of the umbrella groups. When the Senate ratified the BAC charter on behalf of student government, I think it was in the 10th or 11th Senates, and included a provision after the charter, so just applying to student government, that student government could withdraw from BAC by means of a Senate resolution. And that, of course, is practically the lowest threshold of effort for any student government measure. And since leaving BAC would be such a consequential action, it would literally, unless there was another means of distributing student activity fee money, it would just there would be no more student government. At least we couldn't spend any money. I think it should be logically a higher threshold for doing that. So what this bill does is that it amends Title V, Section 8 of the Student Government Code, which is the section that allows student government to withdraw by means of a Senate resolution, and says that the only way student government could leave the BAC is by an amendment to the BAC charter, not just unilaterally. And it also puts in a new provision related to Section 7 in that title of the Student Government Code, which says that the Senate can propose amendments to the BAC charter on behalf of student government. It says that the Senate cannot propose an amendment to that charter that would have student government leave the BAC as long as the BAC is the means by which student activity that funds are used. So it basically, just in plain English, says as long as student government gets our money from the BAC, we will be in the BAC.
Questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll move to discussion. Any discussion on the bill?
Is this a second reading?
Yeah. No discussion?
Yeah, I'm trying to finish reading it, I'm sorry.
As the Finance Committee Chairman said in his report, Finance passed this unanimously, and it's pretty uncontroversial and common sense. I think that this body should agree to this as well.
Dr. Mascaro?
The individual who wrote in the initial kill switch was very skeptical of back and strongly disliked back and didn't even want us to be in it in the first place. And so that sort of context provides why this ridiculously low threshold for us being removed from it even exists in the first place. So I do think it's a very good idea. And I appreciate that finally someone, Senator Zitzman, has found it and corrected it.
Other discussion, Senator? Other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of adopting Bill 1718-023, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. This bill is adopted.
Good work.
All right, moving to our next line item, the clerk will read the legislation by name and title.
Bill 17-18-24, a bill for general upkeep of the bylaws.
Would the sponsor like to speak on this?
Yep. So pretty much the same thing I said, not last week, a few weeks ago now because of spring break. But this follows the same theme as the other bill about the BAC. It's just kind of going through a bunch of little things that have accumulated over the years that should be fixed, but have nobody ever got around to them. So this is mostly typos and getting rid of like appropriations and offices that haven't existed in a long time. So if you have any questions in particular about anything, I can go into more detail.
Questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. Any points of debate or discussion on the bill? Seeing none, we'll move to vote without objection. All those in favor of adopting Bill 1718-024, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Bill's adopted. Moving to the next line item, the clerk will read the legislation by name and title.
Bill 17-18-24, a bill to allow senators to publish unified statements.
Since the sponsor is no longer here, we will move right to discussion on the legislation. Any points of debate or discussion? Senator Zitzman?
Yasmin and I kind of went back and forth writing this bill together, and Noah helped too. And I think it's a good idea. It's pretty simple. We've had all sorts of simple stuff today, which is nice.
Other points? Senator Najafi.
Should we amend it to add Bobby onto it since the senator's no longer here? Just to make sure it's like official. I
Up to
don't know
you.
if there's like
That's a good point.
is that right? Okay.
Yeah. What does it say, parliamentarian?
I feel like that's encouraged, Bobby. So if you're
What?
interested, if you want to sponsor.
Well, I'm not really concerned with putting my name on it. If you want to put my name on it, you can.
Just saying, I don't know if there's like a rule against.
Can we ask
Like,
the
I feel like
parliamentarian what the?
Here.
I would recommend it.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a question about it.
Other points of debate or discussion? Any motions?
Somebody do
Wait, does it need to be a motion?
Senator Robbins.
I motion that we change the sponsor's name on the bill from Senator Hakami to Senator Sitzman.
There's a motion to change the sponsorship from Senator Hakami to Senator Zitzman. Is there a second?
Second.
Debate on this. Any points?
Oh, on the change.
Yeah. On the change. Seeing none, we'll move to vote on the change. All those in favor of changing the sponsorship, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. We're back to the bill as a whole. Senator O'Connor.
Yeah, so I guess I have a concern if I'm not reading this correctly. So the idea is that I think the idea behind this is to like streamline statements that we release whenever an incident occurs and we want to show our support, whatnot. And so I think that's a really good idea. But the way that this is worded, the speaker may also release statements on behalf of the undergraduate senate, which I think is a great idea. But they also need the signatures of 2/3 of the senators. So wouldn't that place like a pretty high burden to like go out for you to go out and collect all the signatures? Perhaps I'm not understanding this.
Senator Zitzman.
Yeah, so what the idea behind this was, and maybe like an example would elucidate it, is back when there were anti-Semitic posters put up in the SIS building for a couple of hours, Yasaman wanted to release a statement on behalf of the undergraduate senate because we had gotten flack before because there was a rule in place that said that statements could only be released on behalf of the Senate on social media if we had passed a resolution for it. And sometimes that can take up to a week if we have to meet for it. So this says we can do it with a resolution just the old way. Or what Yasaman tried to do, she had a statement written up and everybody in the Senate signed on to it. But there was a rule against it, so we couldn't get it passed. So I guess if the speaker wanted to release a statement of their own, they could go around getting senator signatures. But really what this is for is if the Senate, like people in the Senate want to release a statement and not go to a meeting first, they can do it that same day.
Senator O'Connor.
I guess still just going back to that, would a signature kind of be like, could someone put like a poll in like our Facebook group and like hit support this? And does that count as a signature? Because again, I'm just concerned that like.
You can also do like digital signatures too.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm like asking.
Yeah.
What would the signature?
Yeah, Senator Najafi.
What we did with the last statement was we all like wrote our name on this doc, but then it didn't work out. But like I think this would fix that where it's like you write your name on a doc. There is your signature.
Further points on the bill?
Can I grant speaking rights to the public?
Yeah.
They already have them.
Okay.
Would it be possible to do both senators just so that Yam May's role in writing this isn't erased?
Question. You know what? Do you know what the policy is?
You can ask me and I'll take a minute.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Just because like,
No, it
Yeah.
makes sense, but I just don't know if there's a rule
Yeah.
against it. Like if it's gonna count.
Senator Kenna.
Well, can we acknowledge Yasman in the background part of it, since she's not currently a member, but say like given the input of former Senator.
Or like a
Yasmin
thank
Khalil.
you, like
Yeah.
thank you.
Like, thank you to former senator.
we're just like founded or like started by blank, but finalized by, like something.
Oh, Senator Zitzman.
Yeah, I move to amend the background section by adding the following sentence. get there. Yeah. The Senate thanks former Senator Yasamana Kame for taking the initiative and writing this bill while she was in the Senate. Taking initiative and writing this bill while she was in the Senate.
The wording you wish to see?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
There's a second. Discussion on what's in yellow. Seeing none, we'll move to vote on the amendment. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Okay. Back to discussion on the bill as a whole. Senator Kenna.
So I like the idea and the thought process behind this, but I'm curious about what the specific logistics would be, because if the context is that we want to be able to immediately respond to events on campus, you couldn't put like a physical, like a piece of paper in the Senate office and ask people to sign it. So it would have to be digital in some form. But I just think that we should be more specific and more clear in what that form actually is. Is it, like you're saying, Facebook group or email?
Yeah.
Or what would be the procedure?
Other points? Senator O'Connor?
Yeah, I feel like potentially just like a Facebook poll, like, and just attaching that doc. Like, not that this isn't that big a deal, but
I have
I'm just
a
thinking.
motion.
What?
I have a motion.
Okay.
In where it says signatures right before 2/3, just change signatures to agreement.
Is that the what you wish to see?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
So
there's a second. Discussion, what's in yellow? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of adopting what's in yellow, say yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay. Back to discussion on the bill as a whole. Senator Adams.
I have a quick question. So in a situation like this and we wanted to have a resolution or something, could we technically just have a special meeting? Like,
I will say, well, yes, you could, but special meetings have to be announced 48 hours
oh, they do, okay.
before they actually occur. Yes, parliamentarian.
Okay, so because legislation is a main motion, as long as they're a senator when they introduce it. So if that affects anybody's.
Yeah, let's put it back. Let's just put her name, like, make it quick. I motion to amend the sponsorship to put former Senator Yasmin Nakami's name back.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of adding Senator Kami's name back to the sponsorship, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay. Back to the bill as a whole. Yes.
I just want to respond to, I forget who asked my Senator Kenna, about special meetings. You are able to call, I think, a 4-hour meeting with the speaker and president. So if it is an emergency, you can do that. So it doesn't have to be just 2 days.
Yeah. Further discussion on the bill. Senator Kenna.
I move to add, I move to add an amendment. In addition, after the last sentence.
Where?
So at the end of what's in quotations.
Yep.
Before the end of the quotation, can we also say, this agreement must be confirmed via email correspondence, giving the senators a 6-hour time period to respond to the initial email.
Giving the senators a 6-hour? 6-hour.
What? Time period to respond to email.
That's the wording you wish to see.
Can we put a comma after correspondence? That's the wording I wish to see.
Is there a second?
Second.
Here, a second. Any discussion what's in yellow? Senator Zitzman?
I don't know what the purpose of this would be, because last time when we did like a dry run of this, responding to the posters with the statement that never went up, I don't think it was done over email, but it still had people's agreement. And also, I think we have a history in student government of when we put like a specific number of hours on something, that always trips us up, like 48 hours for committee meetings being posted and 3 hours for proxies. So I think, I'm not sure what the intention is, maybe just to add more like verification, but I don't think if that is verification is the goal, I don't think there's a threat of people like falsifying your agreement as a senator. So that's just my thought.
Senator O'Connor?
Yeah, I don't really like this because, I think a lot of us either don't check our emails, too often. Like, obviously, I think we should have some sort of, make people responses very quickly. But again, like I mentioned before, like, I think the way I imagine this is like someone posts in the Facebook group, hey, I wrote up this statement, this just happened. Let's get it really fast. Like, everyone gets notifications on their phone. Not everyone gets them for their emails. So I just think making it that it must be email just kind of trip people up. So.
Senator Najafi?
I think that it's a good way to just like check and make sure that like everyone agrees and we're all on the same page, at least the people who signed on to it, because like if you do rush through these things sometimes, like you can have a statement that gets a lot of backlash. You want to make sure everyone's on board 100%, or at least 2/3. And that like to confirm with them, I don't think it can hurt. 6 hours isn't drastic. Like, and yeah, it's a good way to double check. And like the way we did it last time was a Facebook, like it was a Facebook post. We could post again and be like, okay, just send out the email. You have 6 hours just to confirm. Yes, you signed on. I think it wouldn't hurt.
Senator Kenna?
To add on to what Senator Jaffe is saying, email I think is more, it's more official, but everybody uses it. Contrast with not everybody's on Facebook, so it's more accessible in that way. And then you would get a notification to your phone about the email if whoever's writing the statement, like Leo said, posts in the Facebook group.
Other points? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of adopting what's in yellow, say yay.
Yay.
Yay. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Further discussion on the bill as a whole. Senator Kenna.
I move into voting procedure.
What?
I move to close debate and move into voting.
Okay. There's a motion to close debate. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor of closing debate and moving the vote, say yay. Yay. All those opposed, say nay. So now we are voting on the bill. All those in favor of adopting Bill 17-18025, say yay. Yay. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. This bill is adopted. All right, no further old business, so we'll move to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak at this time? Yes.
So number one, I don't think you guys hear this enough, but thank you for everything that you guys do. Like I really know it's like that whole thing was all legalese. Like, and being like a CLEG guy, like I liked it, but at the same time, like I get it. It's really boring. It can be a lot of work. But like, so number one, like I just want to really thank you guys for doing this for our student body and really trying to represent the best that you can. Number two, I want to really make sure that it does get across though that like, you know, clearly there's so many of you who do care and there's so many of you who actually want to get stuff done, but at the same time, like never lose that drive and never lose that passion because of the fact that you guys have been elected to be here, you know, by your students and some people, you know, sitting here get paid to do this job that they're here for. So never rush through things. Never, you know, I know it's long, I know it's hard, but if there's a person in the room who has a platform to get out to the students that, you know, a Senate meeting was rushed, I feel like the students wouldn't be too happy with stuff like that, you know, especially the student money. Correct. Yeah, that's very true. Especially since we do pay, you know, tuition to pay those who do get paid. But going back to my first point, you guys really don't hear it enough. So thank you guys so much for everything that you do for the student body. Thanks.
Other members of the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to go to the order. First to executive go to the order. Any executive go to the order? Director Cicero.
Thank you. I'm here to work on initiatives. If you have bills that you're passing, and yeah, that's it.
Other go to the order, President Piano.
So, sorry. Oh my God, it went away. So my first thing is on the point on Will made earlier about restructuring the cabinet. I heard that point. I am willing to look at the past bill, see what can be done. My experience is not of a year long, but I feel like I've been doing a year-long work. And I do think it's a very beneficial thing, like I've been telling Will, to have a set. What makes the VP cabinet so efficient is that they have that cyclical structure, and I think that the president needs that, and we can't possibly read every single thing. We're like one person and we're students too. So I do think that we are going to be talking about restructuring the cabinet again, not to where it was previously at, but not where it is right now. And then thank you, Senate, for getting better at clapping. I mean, I got to admit, when I first became president, it was like, Dad, now you guys actually clap for things, so I got to commend you guys for that. So great. And like always, look at that, great. And like always, my doors is always open for you guys. My term is coming to an end really, really soon. So I'm trying to maximize it as much as I can to make sure that I leave a better AUSG. On the student increase, student fee increase, I know there's a lot of questions around that. I'm gonna meet with my team, Christine, and other stakeholders, which I sent an email to. Thank you for filling out the one to me. And once we get that meeting, we will try to come up with a better plan that is also inclusive of like everything that we've been hearing back from students. So just to clarify, I've heard students, we're working on it. We're gonna see what's the best way to either reframe it, do something about it. Trevor and I are also meeting to talk about this. So just to say, #2BD, we're coming back to it, put a pin on it. I'll report to you guys. And Trevor is very much involved, as so is the chair of the finance committee. So we're working on it, okay? All right.
Other executive go to the order. All right, seeing none, we'll move to Senator go to the order. Any senator? Senator Zitzman.
I just want to note that we have a good slate of candidates running in all of our races for the new executive board coming up over the next couple of weeks, including, I think, 5 alumni of this body. So good luck to every one of those people. Thumbs up.
Senator Robbins.
Thank you. I know this is last minute, but tonight I will be attending a meeting, and I would urge my fellow senators to attend a meeting of the AU Student Media Board. They came out on Monday. I've been in contact with them. They have feelings of frustration. They have concerns, and I think they just want to see AUSG willing to communicate with them and speak with them, regardless of like e-board people coming to see them, like actually having senators come to see them. So the meeting is tonight. It's at 6 in MGC 248. I will be there, and I would urge everybody else to be there as well.
Senator O'Connor.
I want to sort of return the favor to the members of the public that came out today. You guys always keep us on our toes, and we really do appreciate that. You ask really good, pointed questions that oftentimes we would never. So, appreciate it.
Other senators for the good of the order. All right, seeing none, just a reminder, office hours, meet with committees, and
events.
Keep reaching, or like reach out to other people that you want to work with. Reach out to me if you guys need help with initiatives. We want to try and get as much done as possible. And like Yami said, we're both working on trying to help the process for you guys. So we're continuously improving. Besides that, also fill out the Google form for your event attendance. And if there is no other good of the order, have a wonderful week, and we are adjourned.
Does anyone else want more candy?
It's all yours.
I'm gonna be that bitch.
They do it, yeah.
Why?